Chapter 1554. At the same time, the power of wind and thunder around him turned into wind and thunder gods. The conquering army rushed towards the sword. Boom! This sharp sword, transformed from the law of sword Tao, directly slashed the conquering army in the sky, directly tearing a huge gap in the sky. It blasted down with unparalleled power and fiercely slammed into the chi wall that Yi Shiwen had set up. Boom! With a bang, the chi wall that Yi Shiwen had spread out was instantly defeated. It was not a match at all and could only play a momentary role in blocking. Break! Yi Shiwen shouted and blasted out a punch. The terrifying fist energy instantly surged and swept up a huge torrent of energy. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist and the sword light fiercely collided with each other. A terrifying explosion, like the sound of metal colliding, resounded. Endless energy waves splashed out, and the endless void shattered on the spot. Many principles manifested and disappeared without a trace on the spot. In a sense, the fight between the two was already a fight between the laws of both sides. The realms of both sides could be said to have reached an unimaginable realm. Drip, drip. Drops of blood dripped down from Yi Shiwen's golden skin. His fist could be said to be a bloody mess. It was cut by this amazing sword light. This was not cut by power, but by the sword principle. Even Yi Shiwen's tyrant body could not escape the fate of being injured. This was because he was a tyrant body. If it was an ordinary person, just that sword light would be able to completely injure him. For Yi Shiwen, this was an unprecedentedly powerful master, a powerful opponent who was enough to threaten his life, but he could not retreat. There was a faint cry of a phoenix in his body, and a stream of qi was repairing the wound on his fist. Yi Kuang's expression was cold and ruthless. He grabbed another sword principle and turned it into a sharp sword. He took a step forward and slashed in front of Yi Shiwen. A simple move in his hands, but it had a great power that could slash the world. This was a sword strike that excelled the work of nature. It did not have the slightest trace of a sword technique, and it did not adhere to the changes of the moves. It came crashing down with boundless power. However, Yi Shiwen's complexion remained unchanged. A big sword appeared in his hand, and a powerful Zhen Yuan surged out of his body. Compared to an ordinary person, his Zhen Yuan was many times more powerful, so he wasn't afraid of any kind of consumption. Boom! A terrifying explosion sound was heard, and a huge sword qi swept out. Yi Kuang's sword qi was getting more and more terrifying, as if it was going to cut through everything. The injury on Yi Shiwen's hand became even more serious. In this collision, he was sent flying on the spot. In the face of Yi Kuang's all-out attack, Yi Shiwen was at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation level. If he was at the seventh heaven of the heaven realm, even if he had just stepped into the seventh heaven of the heaven realm, the situation would be completely different. Sometimes he could make up for the disparity in realm with his fighting prowess, but sometimes it would bring him a fatal disadvantage. Bang! 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 Yi Shiwen was constantly sent flying, and in a moment, they had already exchanged thousands of blows. The fluctuations of the exchange between the two sides were getting more and more intense. As the exchange continued, more and more wounds appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. Even if he had the gilded tyrant form, but in the face of the sword Dao laws that had transformed into sharp swords, he still couldn't avoid being attacked. The divinities on his body were cut open, and the sword Dao laws were wreaking havoc on his body. Even the divinities couldn't cover his wounds, and exposed to the air, his flesh was exposed. Compared to Yi Shiwen's embarrassing situation, Yi Kuang was in a much better state, but he wasn't much better. Finally, there was a trace of fluctuation in his eyes. Yi Shiwen was like a madman who didn't care about his own life. Relying on his tyrannical tyrant body technique and phoenix regeneration technique, Yi Shiwen almost gave up most of his defense and carried on the offensive. He succeeded in leaving a few wounds on Yi Kuang's body. Although they weren't fatal injuries, it was a wake-up call for him. Yi Shiwen was no longer an ant who had no power to fight back. Yi Shiwen's counterattack, for Yi Kuang, was something that he had to pay attention to. Even a rabbit will bite when it's anxious, let alone Yi Shiwen. Phew! However, the more it was like this, the more Yi Kuang wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. Now, not only to eradicate Yi Qiong, but also because Yi Shiwen had become his target. The power in his body began to surge, and the sword Dao laws around his body all condensed in his hand, turning into a huge light sword. You are more difficult to deal with than I thought, and more powerful, but it's useless. For me, I alone am enough. I don't need another one. Yi Kuang looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said. A powerful qi emerged from his body, and suddenly, a huge city appeared in the sky. This huge city vaguely formed the word Zhen, Zhen. This ancient word swept out, as if it wanted to suppress everything. Yi Kuang also had a pseudo-Dao character, and it was the word Zhen Zhen. It was really terrifying. Yi Shiwen could see that countless power began to sweep out from Yi Kuang's body and condensed on top of the word Zhen, making the city that was formed by the word Zhen become bigger and bigger. Everything in the surroundings instantly calmed down, whether it was the broken space or the chaotic chaos. In front of this power, everything was suppressed in an instant. Yi Shiwen, in front of me, you have no chance of winning. I will suppress your Dao and shatter your world. In front of this ancient word, everything you have is nothing, Yi Kuang said coldly. Boom! Yi Kuang's whole body erupted with a terrifying aura, and he stood in the air like a demon god, exuding a terrifying aura. At this moment, in the world, only his Dao was circulating, and everything else was suppressed, even the air was frozen. Yi Shiwen only felt that it was extremely difficult for him to even breathe. At this moment, his whole body seemed to have integrated into the void, and he had become the master of the world, and no one was enough to stand in front of him. Yi Shiwen's expression became dignified. This word Zhen was too terrifying, and Yi Shiwen could even feel that it might be even more powerful than the Wu and Dou characters in his body. Only the Feng character in his body might be able to fight against Yi Kuang's Zhen character. This should be the unique pseudo-Dao character of the demon-suppressing city. I didn't expect Demon Lord Yi to pass this word to you. Yi Shiwen had already guessed the origin of this pseudo-Dao character in a flash. Yes, this should be the pseudo-Dao character of the demon-suppressing city, and even the rise of the demon-suppressing city was because of this word Zhen. In addition, the ancestors of the demon-suppressing city had comprehended a lost technique from the word Zhen, and slowly formed the demon-suppressing city, and only the lord of the demon-suppressing city was qualified to have this word Zhen. Because only with this word Zhen could it be possible to master the martial arts of the demon-suppressing city in a very short period of time and refine it to a very profound realm. Now that this word Zhen had appeared in Yi Kuang's hand, one could imagine how much importance the demon-suppressing city attached to Yi Kuang. It's nothing. I will be the descendant of the demon-suppressing city in the future, and now it's just an embodiment of the demon-suppressing city. That's all. However, I heard that you have the word seal in your body. The word Zhen and the word seal were found in the same place by our ancestors, but I didn't expect that in order to suppress the yin-yang life and death diagram in your body, Yi Zhenqian actually went to the patriarch, and I don't know what price he paid, but he actually lent you the word seal. Yi Kuang faintly said, and the aura on his body was getting more and more powerful. Right now, the yin-yang life and death diagram in your body can't display its power, and even your seal character has to seal the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram. But if it falls into my hands, it will be different. I will use the seal character to seal the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram, and then use the Zhen character to transform the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram into the yin-yang life and death diagram. When the time comes, my cultivation will have an amazing breakthrough, and this is the most correct method. Whether it is the yin-yang life and death diagram or this seal character, they are nothing but pearls covered in dust in your hands. That's all. Whether it's pearls covered in dust or not, you don't need to worry about it. If you want it, then defeat me. Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Kuang and said. His eyes flickered, because Yi Kuang's words had given him a new idea. For him, this yin-yang life and death diagram was not as good as other people imagined. On the contrary, for him, this yin-yang life and death diagram was like a time bomb, and he didn't know when it would explode. Most of the power of the seal character was used to suppress this yin-yang life and death diagram. However, if he could obtain the suppressed character, then he would be able to transform the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram, and his strength would instantly soar. Then he would be able to unleash the power of life and death, which was simply unparalleled. Yi Shiwen, how dare you? I really didn't expect that you would dare to scheme against me. Yi Kuang was so angry that he laughed. He had seen through Yi Shiwen's thoughts, or rather, Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest intention of concealing it. He didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would still dare to scheme against him under such circumstances. He was simply too audacious and lawless. If he wasn't this kind of person, how could he have caused so much trouble since his return? You think you can scheme against me? You think I can't scheme against you? Yi Kuang, the wheel of fortune turns. Sooner or later, you will fall into my hands. Yi Shiwen grinned and said, "What a joke." Yi Kuang said with an ice-cold look on his face. In an instant, the suppress character crashed down towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 1555. The world suddenly changed color. The sky turned dark, the sun and the moon lost their light. Everything trembled under the pressure of this suppress character. It suppressed everything violently. All the great Tao, all the laws, all the martial arts were suppressed and restrained. Unless one's strength was far beyond Yi Kuang's, then in front of this suppress character, everything was like a floating cloud. The more powerful one's strength was, the more it would trigger a crazy counterattack from the suppress character. Moreover, Yi Kuang's understanding of this suppress character was much more profound than Yi Shiwen's understanding of the seal character. At this time, Yi Shiwen's body also emitted two terrifying auras. One was the martial character, the other was the fighting character. These two ancient characters protected Yi Shiwen from the front and the other from the back. They emitted a powerful light and forcibly resisted the suppression of the suppress character. Boom! 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 The three ancient characters constantly emitted powerful rays of light in the void. It was extremely terrifying. As the confrontation continued to intensify, the three ancient characters actually began to transform into three figures. Three huge figures began to fight in the void. These pseudo-daruns and ancient characters were the embodiment of the ancient master's understanding of martial arts. In other words, these ancient characters were equivalent to the incarnation of the ancient master's will. They were powerful to a terrifying extent. Moreover, they also contained their understanding of martial arts. At this moment, all of them were manifested. The Jun, character behind Yi Kuang, turned into an old man. This old man's might was peerless. Each of his movements contained great power. He was like an emperor. Each of his movements could suppress the heavens and earth. Each of his movements could cause the heavens and earth to tremble. Everything in the world was suppressed. Yi Shiwen's Wu and Do characters also transformed into two huge figures. The Wu character transformed into a phantom of a middle-aged man. His body was brimming with an obscure aura. It seemed as if he was an eternal great way. No one could see through his aura and see through his essence. He seemed to be the great Tao. He was the source of everything, the origin of all martial arts. Just looking at him would bring great benefits. He seemed to be evolving martial arts at every moment. Claw techniques, fist techniques, sword techniques. Thousands of martial arts were evolving on him. He was powerful and terrifying. The fighting character turned into the appearance of a young man. An incomparably terrifying aura splashed out from his body. All kinds of martial arts could be displayed on his body. Every movement of his could pierce through the sky. No one could be arrogant in front of him. This was the essence of the fighting character. At this time, Yi Shiwen's martial and fighting characters joined forces to resist the phantom of Yi Kuang's suppressed character. The confrontation between the two was equivalent to a confrontation between the Great Tao. Whoever had a better understanding of the Great Tao would gain a decisive advantage. The three terrifying phantoms pierced through the world and turned the entire place into a battlefield. Only the valley under Yi Shiwen's feet was safe and sound under the protection of his divinities. Even the seal character inside Yi Shiwen's body sensed the existence of the suppressed character. It was constantly stirring. It wanted to turn into a phantom and rush forward. However, it was suppressed by Yi Shiwen. Once the seal character left his body, then the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram would instantly erupt. For him, it would be a disaster. At least for the current Yi Shiwen. He had no way to digest the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram. Even so, a large amount of Jin Yuan was being drawn out of his body at every moment. In order to maintain the consumption of these two ancient characters, his face began to turn pale. This move was very powerful, so naturally, the consumption was also very large. Yi Shiwen, I didn't expect that besides the seal character inside your body, there are actually two more ancient characters. Ha ha ha, it just so happens that these two ancient characters belong to me now. With these two ancient characters, I will become even more powerful. Yi Kuang laughed heartily, and the suppress character phantom above his head directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen's two ancient character phantoms. Suppress, suppress, suppress for me? The huge phantom of the suppress character kept raising its hand and slamming down. Yi Shiwen's two ancient characters were constantly being bombarded and forced to retreat step by step. Obviously, there was a big gap between them and the suppressed character. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth and persevered. The void under his feet continued to crack, and he himself was being pushed back bit by this formidable force. The Jin Yuan on his body was also being swallowed by the two ancient characters bit by bit. Hold on, hold on. Yi Shiwen closed his eyes, clenched his teeth, and persevered. His face began to gradually turn pale. At this time, inside Tianyuan mirror, a spirit crystal mineral vein began to burn crazily. It turned into pure Lingqi and instantly poured into Yi Shiwen's body. On one hand, it crazily replenished his consumed Jin Yuan. On the other hand, it was constantly pouring into the special space inside his body. The mysterious space began to shine with dazzling rays of light. Every time the shadow of the word suppress collided with the shadow of the word fight and the shadow of the word suppress, some of the martial arts mysteries of the word suppress would appear in Yi Shiwen's mind. At this most intense moment, the mysterious space began to analyze the mysteries of the word suppress. Although the process of analysis was very slow, it still made Yi Shiwen overjoyed. He had already seen the power of the word suppress. The fight and fight characters were somewhat unable to withstand it. Although the main reason for this was due to Yi Shiwen's lack of strength, but it was obvious that the fight and fight characters were inferior to the suppressed characters. These disparities, coupled with the disparity between Yi Shiwen and himself, had directly led to Yi Shiwen falling into a disadvantageous position in this battle. He could only clench his teeth and persevere. He did not want the battle to break into the valley and disturb the other three's breakthrough. Such an opportunity might not appear again next time. As long as he could hold Yi Kuang down, he would win. On the contrary, Yi Kuang saw that he could not do anything to Yi Shiwen for a while, so he began to feel anxious. Yi Shiwen could hold him down and win, but he must kill Yi Shiwen first before he could attack Yi Qiu. For him, Yi Shiwen was the biggest stumbling block, a stumbling block that had to be eradicated. Damn it, suppress for me! He continued to roar, and cold sweat began to appear on his face. The fight character and the fight character had consumed a lot of energy for Yi Shiwen, but for him, the suppress character had also consumed a lot of energy. Yi Shiwen could not hold on for a long time, and he was not much better off. This was one of his trump cards. He thought that he could rely on the powerful ancient character to defeat Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop, but who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would also have an ancient character? Suddenly, the situation fell into a bitter struggle. Rumble! The suppress character shadow's attack was like a long river, crashing down, one after another, without the slightest mercy. Although Yi Shiwen was defeated again and again, he did not collapse. No matter how strong Yi Kuang's attack was, Yi Shiwen was constantly clenching his teeth and holding on. He began to feel anxious, but soon, he was even more horrified to discover that along with the continuous attacks of the shadow of suppress, Yi Shiwen also seemed to take this opportunity to understand the essence of the word suppress. Slowly, he was also able to resist some of the attacks. This was unimaginable for him. It was not a big deal to have a breakthrough in battle. Although many people had a breakthrough in battle, their perception had already reached this standard long ago. It was just that they had not been able to cross this threshold. However, the perception in battle was the most frightening thing, especially in such an intense battle. A slight distraction could cause one to be killed by him. How did Yi Shiwen do two things at the same time? He was actually able to be distracted and perceive while fighting with him. Yi Kuang's face was full of anger. For him, this was simply a provocation. Could it be that my pressure was so easy to resist? How could he still have the heart to understand? You dare to be distracted in battle with me. I will let you know how big of a mistake you have made. Yi Kuang sneered coldly. A big sword appeared in his hand and instantly slashed down towards Yi Shiwen. The sword light directly turned into a great path, directly slashing down towards Yi Shiwen, wanting to behead him on the spot. Yi Shiwen's entire strength was used to resist the suppress character shadow, and he could only watch helplessly as this terrifying power shrouded him. This sword, Yi Kuang did not hold back at all. Even a terrifying master of the 7th level of Celestial Realm could be seriously injured on the spot. This was a sword that could truly split the world. Seeing that this sword was about to hit Yi Shiwen could not react at all, and could only directly spread out the wind and thunder wings behind him, and then directly surrounded him. Boom! That terrifying sword light ruthlessly slashed on Yi Shiwen's wind and thunder wings, and the endless power of wind and thunder was completely annihilated in that instant. Crack, crack! Yi Shiwen's wind and thunder wings, under this force, actually shattered bit by bit. Then, with a loud bang, it completely turned into a raging tide of energy that swept across the sky. Yi Shiwen's wind and thunder wings were so powerful, but now it completely collapsed and swept away with a loud bang. Bang! The sword light's momentum did not diminish, and ruthlessly slashed on Yi Shiwen's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His whole body could not withstand the impact, and was sent flying out. That amazing sword light slashed on his chest, and a huge wound was opened up on his chest. His sternum was cut, and blood splattered out. Even his internal organs would have been completely crushed. But even if it was just the aftermath, the sword chi still caused serious damage to his internal organs. And without the support of Yi Shiwen's real Yuan, the Wu character shadow and the fighting character shadow completely collapsed in the void, unable to be maintained. Die for me! Yi Kuang's face finally revealed a somewhat satisfied smile, and directly slashed down towards Yi Shiwen with the sword light in his hand. Chapter 1556. Go to hell! Yi Kuang's face finally revealed a satisfied smile as he slashed his sword towards Yi Shiwen. Finally, this battle was coming to an end. After this battle, Yi Shiwen, who was originally not a threat to him, had unknowingly become a threat to him. In fact, Yi Shiwen was even comparable to Yi Qiong. Compared to Yi Qiong, Yi Shiwen only lacked time. If he had enough time, he might have become a huge threat to Yi Kuang. Now, Yi Kuang could finally eliminate Yi Shiwen and then kill Yi Qiong. Then, he would no longer have to worry about Yi Qiong. Yi Kuang, it's time for you to stop. Suddenly, a shocking sound reverberated in the void. Then, a shocking wind blade tore through the void and turned into a stream of light at an astonishing speed, rushing straight at them. Boom! Finally, the wind edge fiercely struck Yi Shiwen's body before the sword light exploded. In a terrible explosion, both the wind blade and the sword blade were annihilated by their respective powers and turned into endless waves of air. Yi Shiwen also took advantage of this great calamity and barely managed to stand firm in the void. His complexion was deathly pale, and his whole body seemed as if he had just been fished out of the water. He was dripping wet and had been soaked in cold sweat. Finally, he managed to save his life in the nick of time. The Phoenix regeneration technique in his body continued to operate, repairing the fatal wound on his chest. He was almost cut into two halves. Yi Kuang's fighting strength was much more terrifying than he had imagined. At this time, Yi Xuan finally understood why Yi Kuang was able to sit so firmly in the position of Batian among the 5 tyrants of Yi family for so many years. Although the 5 tyrants of Yi family were on equal footing, but in fact, everyone recognized that Zhong Batian was the strongest among them. Only the strongest was qualified to inherit the title of Zhong Batian. The Yi clan's 5 hegemons did not only exist in this generation, but also in the previous generation, or even in the distant past. The Yi clan's 5 hegemons represented the 5 strongest members of the Yi clan, and Batian was often the strongest among the 5. In other words, Zhong Batian was the strongest in the entire Yi clan, and even in the Yi clan subsidiary forces, he was the strongest among the younger generation. Only the strongest was qualified to be crowned with the title of Zhong Batian. At this time, Yi Xuan realized that he had underestimated Yi Kuang. Yi Qiong, Yi Xuan, Yi Shukong, and Yi Qianqian were no match for him. At that time, Yi Xuan had not broken through to the next realm, so even if the 4 of them joined hands, they would have been easily defeated by him. Otherwise, they would not have been able to compete with Yi Kuang. Yi Kuang grinned. Even so, his eyes were filled with excitement. Having such a strong opponent was tantamount to a roadside for him on the road of martial arts, so he would not lack the motivation to move forward. Although this battle was a battle of life and death, but the harvest was also great. Sure enough, battles were necessary. One battle gave him far more insights than one could gain from a closed-door training session. No wonder the more battle-maniac they were, the faster their cultivation progress would be. Yi Qiong, Yi Kuang gazed into the valley. At this moment, apart from Yi Qiong, he couldn't think of anyone else who would be able to stop his attack. Sure enough, a figure flew out from the valley below. It was Yi Qiong. Yi Qiong stood with his hands behind his back, his body exuding a powerful aura. This powerful aura was somewhat similar to Yi Kuang's, but slightly weaker than Yi Kuang's aura. Yi Xuan could see at a glance that Yi Qiong had finally stepped into the 7th heavenly layer of Celestial Realm. He had just stepped into the 7th heavenly layer of Celestial Realm, so he was still unable to fully control this aura. He looked at Yi Kuang in the sky and said coldly, "Yi Kuang, enough is enough." "Nonsense. Do you think I'm nonsense?" Yi Kuang suddenly laughed and said coldly, "I didn't expect that even you would step into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. But do you think you are my opponent? It's useless. Even if you step into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm, you can't be my opponent, and I can even beat you until your cultivation level falls, believe it or not." "Of course, I believe it." Yi Qiong nodded. He had just stepped into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm, and his cultivation level had not stabilized yet. It was indeed possible that he would be beaten back to the 6th sky of Celestial Realm. "If it was only one person, I may not be your opponent, but now, with him, even if I am not your opponent, you will not be able to do anything to us." Yi Kuang looked at Yi Qiong coldly. It was obvious that he was a little afraid of Yi Qiong, but he didn't retreat. He just looked at Yi Qiong with an expression of unwillingness. He had planned this far, so close to succeeding. He would have gotten rid of 2 of his biggest enemies, clearing the way for him to reach the top in the future. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? "I want to see, even if you join us, what can you do?" He is now seriously injured and is not a threat. Yi Kuang quickly made up his mind and looked at the seriously injured Yi Xuan and decided to kill them. "In that case, Yi Kuang, don't blame me for this," Yi Qiong said, and his aura began to sweep crazily. Countless Jin Yuan was drawn out, forming a surging torrent, and formed a virtual image of the word fighting in the sky. It turned into a young man, and his aura was monstrous, facing the virtual image of the word suppress behind Yi Kuang. Although he had also just broken through, don't forget that his cultivation level was much higher than Yi Xuan's, so his aura was not much weaker than Yi Xuan's. "Yi Kuang, you have miscalculated. Let me step into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm, and soon your advantage will be gone, and I will catch up." Yi Qiong looked at Yi Kuang and said, "Although I have not yet reached the peak, but it is enough for us to fight at the same level." The shadow of the dope character behind him suddenly moved and rushed towards Yi Kuang. In an instant, his body seemed to have transformed into countless kinds of martial arts and battle techniques. Yi Kuang's body seemed to have reached the pinnacle. His attack seemed to be a fist technique, but it also seemed to be a leg technique, and it also seemed to be a sword technique. It was ever-changing, and there was no way to determine it. However, it was the most terrifying attack technique. This was the true secret of the Do character. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Yi Qiong's understanding of the Do character was much more profound. Yi Kuang, this word fighting, I specially found it to counter your suppress. Let's fight. Yi Qiong's roar was like a surging torrent, and the virtual image of the word fighting rushed towards Yi Qiong. What a joke, Yi Qiong, with your current state, you want to be on par with me. Suppress me? Yi Kuang roared crazily, and the virtual image of the word suppress directly slapped towards the virtual image of the word fighting. In an instant, it seemed as if it could suppress everything. Countless principles appeared around him and were instantly suppressed. It seemed as if everything in this world was completely under the control of the word suppress. Bang! A terrible collision occurred, and the essence of martial arts between both sides manifested in the sky. This was a collision without the slightest emotion, and it was impossible to hold back because this was the understanding of martial arts between both sides. There was no right or wrong, but because of this, it was even more important not to lose. Everyone firmly believed that their own martial arts were the strongest, and it was impossible to be worse than anyone else's. Dang, dang, dang. Yi Qiong kept retreating. The strength of Yi Kuang, who was at the peak of the seventh sky of celestial realm, was much more tyrannical than Yi Qiong's current strength. On the other side, Yi Kuang's complexion suddenly turned deathly pale, and his body swayed. The void under his feet shattered, and it was obvious that he had just endured a terrible attack. For him, this collision was not easy to deal with. If he was in his peak state, he would not care about Yi Qiong at all, but in the previous battle with Yi Shiwen's desperate attack had injured him, and he had also consumed more than half of his Jin Yuan. At this time, he was far from his peak state. Ha ha ha, this is great, Yi Kuang. Yi Qiong laughed and said. Yi Kuang's eyes flashed with a bewildered look, and at this time, he saw that Yi Shiwen's aura was gradually recovering. In such a short period of time, the wound that had almost taken his life had actually recovered by more than half. Although it was not yet at its peak state, but it was enough for a battle. This was equivalent to a battle with two people, and he would not care about either one of them. But since the two of them had joined forces, he had no choice but to pay attention. Suddenly, in the valley, two tyrannical auras rushed up to the sky, directly crushing all the clouds in the sky. Two auras of the seventh sky of celestial realm swept out and suddenly fell. Yi Qianqian and Yi Qiong had actually stepped into the seventh sky of celestial realm at almost the same time, although they had just broken through, but it had already brought great pressure to Yi Kuang. Damn! Yi Kuang's eyes were filled with bewilderment. If there were only two of them, he would still dare to fight, but now that Yi Qianqian and Yi Shukong had both stepped into the seventh sky of celestial realm, it would become a 1 versus 4 situation. No matter how arrogant he was, he did not dare to say that he could take down these 4 people unscathed. Any one of these 4 people had the ability to delay him, and if the 4 of them joined forces, he might die. Ha ha ha, Yi Kuang, you still haven't left? Are you scared? I scared you to death. Yi Shiwen laughed and said, affecting the injuries on his body, making his face somewhat pale, but his mood was exceptionally carefree. Chapter 1557. Yi Kuang's eyes were filled with uncertainty. He had absolute confidence in a one-on-one fight, and he could also fight against 2 at once. However, when it came to 1 against 4, it was a big problem for him. After all, these 4 were not ordinary people. If any of them fully matured, they would have the ability to compete with him. Even if they had not fully matured yet, with the 4 of them joining forces, with his current state, he was not even at half of his peak fighting strength. How could he be a match for them? Yi Kuang was not an ordinary person. Since he had sensed the danger, he naturally would not let himself stand under the wall. He immediately turned around and fled without saying a word, because he knew very well that in front of these people, Saying anything was tantamount to asking for humiliation. He's gone? A stream of light flashed beside Yi Shiwen, and Yi Shukong appeared next to him. Yi Qianqian also followed closely behind. Their cultivation had almost broken into the seventh sky of celestial realm at the same time. At this time, they had not yet consolidated their cultivation, but their aura was already pure seventh sky of celestial realm. I still want to have a good fight with him. Zhong Batian, such a big name? Yi Shukong snorted coldly. There was a bit of anger in his heart. Previously, because of Yi Kuang, they had to retreat in advance. If it was not for Yi Shiwen holding Yi Kuang back, how could they have broken through now? Although Yi Kuang was scared away, he was still unwilling in his heart. He wanted to kill Yi Kuang with his own hands. At this point, both sides had already shed all pretense of cordiality. At this time, it was too ridiculous to mention the friendship of the same clan. Yi Shukong was a proud person. He carried the blood of the gods and was indescribably noble. Even in the case of a monstrous genius like Yi Shiwen, he was still a first-class figure. He had been determined to challenge the Yi clan's 5 tyrants for many years. Next to him, Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Shiwen's injuries and her eyes became colder. She did not care about the 5 tyrants. She only knew that Yi Shiwen was seriously injured. "Are you okay?" Yi Qianqian asked with concern. "I'm fine, he. As long as it is not a fatal blow, I'm fine." Yi Shiwen grinned and said. This time he had recovered a lot. This was the truth. With the magic of Phoenix regeneration, as long as he was not killed on the spot, there would always be a way to recover. "That's good." Yi Qianqian nodded and said. She firmly believed in Yi Shiwen's words. Moreover, she had gone through many life and death situations with him. So, she was well aware of the fact that Yi Shiwen possessed an extremely powerful power technique. "Yi Shiwen, I owe you another favor this time." "Sai, what should I do?" "This favor is getting bigger and bigger." Yi Qiong covered his forehead, looking very distressed. "Haha, don't worry. There will be opportunities in the future." Yi Shiwen also said in a carefree manner. "That's true. We still have a long way to go," Yi Qiong said with a smile. But this time, Yi Kuang suffered a double loss. He did not accomplish anything. "This time, it seems that there are some of his spies around me. When I go back, I need to remove these people first. Otherwise, I won't be able to hide anything from him in the future." Yi Qiong's eyes flashed with a hint of fierceness. This time, it could be said that he had almost died. If Yi Shiwen hadn't come out with a surprise attack at the critical moment, then perhaps Yi Kuang would have succeeded. If Yi Kuang had succeeded, then the consequences would have been unimaginable. Even if it was just a fortuitous encounter, it would still have a huge impact on him. It was a profound lesson. Unlike Yi Shiwen was a loner. It was impossible to plan a spy around him. So, this time, he quietly left the number 1 secret territory with Feng Qi. Yi Kuang was completely unaware of it. He only found out that Yi Shiwen had left the secret territory. However, Yi Qiong had gathered a group of people around him. They were also the foundation of his future fight for the position of the family head. Some of them were even his confidants. But these people had been infiltrated by Yi Kuang. This was undoubtedly a big lesson for Yi Qiong. "Yi Shiwen, after this incident, I'm afraid that you will become a thorn in Yi Kuang's side. You must also be careful. The demon-suppressing city has always been ruthless. As long as they believe that something is right, they will do it by hook or by crook." Yi Qiong looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a bit of surprise in his eyes. He saw that the wound on Yi Shiwen's chest had almost healed. He could not help but be speechless. He had seen with his own eyes how serious the injury was. He had almost been split in half and killed. How long had it been? But it had almost healed. He did not know whether it was because of Yi Shiwen's special physique or because of some special martial technique. But no matter which one it was still an amazing thing. "Don't worry. Yi Kuang and the others are not to be trifled with. I'm not a useless person either," Yi Shiwen said with a smile. However, he was somewhat vigilant in his heart. Yi Qiong's words had reminded him that if Yi Kuang could kill Yi Qiong, he might be able to kill him in the future. "The mochi in the sky is getting thicker," suddenly Yi Qianqian said. She raised her head slightly and looked into the void. After hearing Yi Qianqian's words, everyone also looked up. Sure enough, the mochi in the sky was getting thicker. Although they could not penetrate through the layers of space to see the specific situation of the royal court, they could see that it was just a small black dot in the sky. Now, it was the size of a palm. It was obvious that the mochi had increased several times in this period of time. This was not good news for the human race. A bad feeling emerged in everyone's heart. At their level, it could be said that it was rare to have such a feeling. But when it came, it was usually a bad sign. Ordinary people sometimes had a sixth sense, let alone them. Their sixth sense was many times more sensitive than ordinary people. At this time, Yi Shiwen remembered someone's words. The aura of a great calamity could be smelled even with one's toes. No matter what, even if the sky falls, there will be tall people to hold it up. Now let those heaven realm experts worry about these things. We should think about the imperial court battle in a few years to fight for the top 100. This time, our Yi family has so many people in the top 100, so naturally we have to show off our Yi family's might. Yi Qiong looked at the three of them and said. He couldn't help but feel a little emotional. It had been many years since the Yi clan had such a large group of top geniuses. Even the 5 lords had appeared one after the other. For the Yi clan, this might be a great opportunity. Everyone, we should make use of this time to train. If anything happens and the demon race breaks in, it might be time for us to act. Before that, if we can step into the celestial realm, we will be able to protect ourselves in this chaotic world. Yi Qiong's gaze swept across everyone. These words were already very harsh. Although there were still remnants of the demon race causing trouble inside and the demon race attacking outside, the situation was not that serious. There had been no news of the imperial court being captured. Not even a single outer city's defense line had been shaken. With the invasion of the demon race, the human race's accumulated strength for many years was completely unleashed. Experts emerged one after another. Many experts that no one had ever heard of attacked and killed the demon race. From the looks of the situation, it might just be a small disturbance that would be quelled. Over the years, the human race had encountered many such disturbances. For Yi Qiong to say something like this, it was more or less to the point of being heart-wrenching. If it was before this, Yi Qiong would definitely not say such words because it would be too deep. But it was different now. They could be said to have gone through life and death together. The few of them had their own guesses about this. They did not feel that Yi Qiong's words were too sudden. They just nodded. Well, let's go back first. Hurry up and go back to consolidate the realm. Yi Qiong looked at Yi Shiwen again. This kid was really a monster. Not only was his recovery ability scary, but his speed of consolidation was also amazing. The 4 of them had almost broken through in almost no time. However, the 3 of them still needed to go back to consolidate their realm. Yi Shiwen had completely consolidated his realm. This was the gap between them. They did not delay and hurriedly rushed in the direction of the Yi family. The 4 of them were top experts. Needless to say, they were rushing as fast as lightning. Previously, in order to get rid of Yi Kuang, they had to take a detour. This time, they directly went in the direction of the Yi family. In less than half a day, they had already arrived at the Yi family. Yi Shiwen, you are finally back. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Yi Shiwen and the others had just stepped into the Yi family. Suddenly, a cold voice came from the sky. Then, a figure slowly walked out of the void. It was a young man in a white robe. He had a fair face and sharp eyebrows. He was extraordinarily handsome. At this time, he looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of contempt and disdain. Everyone instantly recognized the origin of this young man in a white robe because he was too famous. In the Yi family, the 5 tyrants were the most famous. This young man in a white robe was one of the 5 tyrants, Yi Xinghe. Among the 5 tyrants, Yi Xinghe was the only one who appeared as a young man. He was also young and proud. At a very early age, he had already become famous in the Yi family. Later, when the 5 tyrants of the Yi family were re-elected, he was one of them. Moreover, he had never come back after going up. Yi Kuang was also the youngest among the 5 tyrants. He was young and proud, so he was also the most arrogant and domineering one among the 5 tyrants. Although Yi Kuang was arrogant, but he was not too arrogant and domineering. Even though Yi Shiwen was his enemy, he had to admit that Yi Kuang was indeed a man of great talent and great ambition. Moreover, the most important thing was that Yi Xinghe was from the imperial clan court. Chapter 1558. Yi Xinghe was the pillar of the Yi clan's imperial clan court. Many large organizations of the Yi clan trained the younger generation to be their successors. Among them, the five tyrants were the most famous and powerful. Although Yi Xinghe was arrogant and domineering, he was also recognized by everyone as tyrannical. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been the last to squeeze into the position of the five tyrants. Although the positions of the five tyrants were chosen by everyone, it wasn't as simple as that. The higher-ups of the Yi clan would always allocate resources to the geniuses. The more powerful the geniuses, the more resources they would receive. Among them, the five tyrants received the most resources. Otherwise, how could they stand out from the crowd? In fact, although they were strong in the beginning, they weren't as far ahead as they were now. This was seizing the initiative, taking the lead step by step, and finally leaving everyone else in the dust. Yi Shiwen's complexion turned dignified. His relationship with the Imperial Clan Palace couldn't be considered as friendly. The Imperial Clan Palace had taken advantage of the absence of the Law Enforcement Hall's elders and had wanted to arrest him. Then, he had created a huge ruckus in the Imperial Clan Palace and had thoroughly stripped their face. Now that Yi Xinghe had appeared here, he was probably up to no good. What's the matter? Yi Shiwen glanced at him and asked indifferently. I'm just here to see what you are. I'm already arrogant enough, but compared to you, I'm afraid I'm still lacking. Yi Xinghe looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a frivolous expression, how could he not know the evaluation of others? Not only was he not ashamed of it, but on the contrary, he was even more proud of it. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid of him, why would they describe him in such a manner? What kind of place is the Imperial Clan Court? How dare you break into it? Yi Xinghe glanced at Yi Shiwen and said. His eyes drifted towards Yi Qiong, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong. You can also try breaking into the Law Enforcement Hall, Yi Shiwen said in a lukewarm tone. Yi Xinghe almost lost his breath. He stared at Yi Shiwen with his eyes wide open. F***CK? What kind of place is the Law Enforcement Hall? It's the place that controls the laws of the Yi clan. Isn't he courting death by breaking into the Law Enforcement Hall? The Law Enforcement Hall wasn't like the Imperial Clan Court in the past. He could casually barge into the Law Enforcement Hall without any problems. However, he would certainly die if he dared to barge into the Law Enforcement Hall now. After all, any old antique could come out and kill him. The Imperial Clan Court wouldn't have anything to say about it. However, barging into the Law Enforcement Hall without permission would result in the death penalty. This was different from what Yi Shiwen had done in the past. Brat, looks like I've underestimated you. Yi Xinghe looked at him coldly, and his expression turned cold. He was no longer as frivolous as before. Don't think that you have the right to be arrogant just because you cleared the Imperial Clan Court. You're just taking advantage of the fact that there are no tigers in the mountains. Only a monkey can claim to be a king. Actually, you're nothing. You can call yourself a king. Yi Shiwen glanced at him and said. Yi Xinghe suddenly became furious again. Wasn't this mocking him as a monkey? Yi Qianqian and the others next to him also held back their laughter, which made Yi Xinghe even more furious. This was not a blatant mockery. He was that monkey. Brat, you're indeed insolent. However, you're making a big mistake if you dare to be insolent in front of me. Yi Xinghe's face was cold, and his eyes were filled with anger as he looked at Yi Shiwen. Today, I'll let you know that it's not so easy to take advantage of the Imperial Clan Court. As he said that, he looked at Yi Qiong, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong and said, Are you guys going to help him? There was a hint of fear in his eyes. Unlike Yi Shiwen, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong had just broken through to the seventh heaven of the celestial realm and could not completely restrain their auras. Therefore, it was easy to determine the strength of the three of them. Just one of them was already very troublesome, let alone three of them. He had no choice but to be afraid. No. Yi Qiong shrugged and said with a smile. What kind of joke was this? Although Yi Shiwen was only at the fourth heaven of the celestial realm, he could barely fight Yi Kuang, who had already stepped into the seventh heaven of the celestial realm. Would he need his help? Seeing that Yi Qiong and the others had no intention of helping, Yi Xinghe heaved a sigh of relief. Although he felt that there was something hidden in Yi Qiong's smile that he did not understand, he did not take it to heart. He had absolute confidence in his own strength. A mere Yi Shiwen would not be able to overturn the heavens. Young master, don't talk nonsense with him. Take him back and torture him. I don't believe that this person must have been instructed by someone else. At this time, a short and fat old man appeared in the void and stared at Yi Shiwen coldly. Judging from his attire, he should be a powerful elder-level expert of the Imperial Clan Court. Such an expert would be a giant-level figure in the ancient Baron's continent. He would also have a high position in the Yi family. Compared to him, although Yi Shiwen was valued previously, he was nothing at all. How dare you? Your Imperial Clan Court is really not done yet. Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes and said in an unfriendly tone. The anger that he suffered from Yi Kuang had completely erupted at this time. It could only be said that these two people happened to bump into the muzzle of his gun, causing his expression to turn abnormally ugly. This Imperial Clan Court was really endless. They had not learned their lesson after being messed up by him previously. At this time, they still dared to send people to intercept him. It seemed that they would not be satisfied until he was sent to the Imperial Clan Court's prison. Previously, so many stewards of the Imperial Clan Court were all killed by Yi Shiwen alone. This also made them aware of Yi Shiwen's strength. Perhaps even a sixth heaven of the celestial realm expert could not control him. Therefore, they sent Yi Xinghe and this elder at the seventh heaven of the celestial realm. There were no other experts. Did they still need other experts? Naturally, there was no need. If they still failed with an elder taking action, they would be too ashamed to face others. Among the younger generation, the current popular rumor was that Yi Kuang was still in closed-door cultivation, preparing to break through to the seventh heaven of the celestial realm. Even if there was someone who had secretly entered the seventh heaven of the celestial realm, he should not be the opponent of an experienced elder. Moreover, this person was definitely not Yi Shiwen. It seems that if I don't teach your Imperial Clan Court a lesson, this kind of thing will never end. Yi Shiwen's tone became low, and he said with a sneer, How dare you? Our Imperial Clan Court represents the ancestral family law. No one can disobey the ancestral family law. You, the remnant of the demon race, better surrender obediently. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being impolite. The elder of the Imperial Clan Court glared at Yi Shiwen coldly and scolded sternly. There was a bit of disgust in his eyes. Then let me see how you plan to be impolite. Yi Shiwen's tone rose one word at a time, and the aura inside his body also soared in circles. With his body as the center, a huge tornado was formed and instantly soared into the sky. Such a movement suddenly attracted the attention of many people. This aura had already surpassed the ordinary celestial realm, and it immediately attracted the attention of many experts in the depths of the Yi clan. Yi Shiwen, why is it this Yi Shiwen again? What does he want to do? Does he want to start a fight in front of our Yi clan? Yes, the Imperial Clan Court. The people of the Imperial Clan Court and Yi Shiwen have collided again. It seems to be much more interesting now. Ah, that's right. The people of the Imperial Clan Court are not good people. They are not to be trifled with. But this Yi Shiwen is also a thorn. He is simply unscrupulous and lawless. At this critical moment, they are still fighting among themselves? The people of the Imperial Clan Court are really too much. Taking advantage of the absence of the clan lord, they want to do whatever they want. Do they want to go back to many years ago, when they could do whatever they want and catch whoever they want? The clan lord has already said that this matter with Yi Shiwen will end here. They are really bold enough to not even listen to the clan lord's words. Different people naturally had different opinions about the conflict between the two sides. Well done, Yi Shiwen. This old man didn't want to be rough, but you forced me to do so. Humph, you disobeyed the law. Even if this old man executes you on the spot, no one will cry out for you. The elder looked at Yi Shiwen coldly, and a clan sword appeared in his hand. Suddenly, An invisible coercion was released from the clan sword in an attempt to suppress Yi Shiwen. But it couldn't get close to Yi Shiwen, and was turned invisible by the golden energy in Yi Shiwen's body. Executes me on the spot? Old man, I want to see how you're going to execute me on the spot. Yi Shiwen sneered and instantly moved. His body was like a humanoid monster and directly tore through the vast sky. After stepping into the fourth sky of the celestial realm, Yi Shiwen was equivalent to stepping into a whole new realm. Compared to before, it was completely different. In an instant, he had already rushed in front of the clan lord, and his whole body spurted out sword intention, condensing into a big sword in his hand, and like lightning, he chopped down. Compared to Yi Kuang's swordsmanship, Yi Shiwen's swordsmanship was also average. He didn't have many moves, only speed. The speed of his sword was as fast as lightning. The elder of the imperial clan court could only see a golden lightning flash in front of him. He didn't have any time to react. At this time, he finally understood that Yi Shiwen wasn't a soft persimmon, but a big iron plate. But at this time, it was already too late, and he only had time to block the sword in front of him. Clang! A loud sound of metal colliding resounded, and a dreadful energy swept out in a frenzy. Yi Shiwen's strength was so great that it could almost be said to be able to uproot a mountain. His aura was matchless, and he was able to pierce through the void with only the strength of his body. This dreadful power completely shook the body of this elder of the imperial clan court. Puff! The clan lord suddenly spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew out on the spot like a howitzer. Chapter 1559. One sword strike, only one sword strike. This arrogant elder of the imperial clan court couldn't even withstand a single sword strike from Yi Shiwen. What did it mean to defeat 10 with one strike? This was exactly what it meant to defeat 10 with one strike. After a while, a loud bang was heard. The elder of the imperial clan court crashed directly into a mountain, directly smashing the mountain and causing it to collapse. He screamed incessantly on the spot. His whole body was limp, as if the power of Yi Shiwen's slash had broken all the bones in his body. It was extremely terrifying. Puff! To everyone's surprise, they saw the elder of the imperial clan court spitting out blood continuously. The blood was mixed with some fragments of internal organs. The power of Yi Shiwen's slash was so terrifying. Everyone looked at this scene dumbfounded, and then looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. Yi Shiwen was actually so terrifying. That was a master of the celestial realm at the 7th level. He could be regarded as a top big shot in the Yi family. But in Yi Shiwen's hands, he couldn't even withstand one move. Hiss! How can he be so terrifying? Wasn't Yi Shiwen only able to defeat experts at the 6th level of the celestial realm? How long has it been? And he has improved again. Even an expert at the 7th level of the celestial realm is not his match. Such a task is really terrifying. Also, look at Yi Qiong, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong next to him. They clearly seem to have stepped into the 7th level of the celestial realm. I can't be wrong about their auras. They're definitely at the 7th level of the celestial realm. Oh my god, these people have actually stepped into the 7th level. Hiss! Has a new generation of big shots been born? Youngsters nowadays are getting more and more terrifying. This time, the Imperial Clan Court has kicked an iron plate. Even an expert of the 7th heavenly layer of Heaven Realm wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen. In fact, he defeated him so easily. He's truly a peerless monster. How can this be? Yi Xingao also looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. He could not believe that such a scene would happen. At this time, when he looked at Yi Shiwen again, he did not have the same contempt as before. A guy at the 4th level of the Celestial Realm was able to send an elder of the Imperial Clan Court flying with a single sword strike. Admittedly, this elder had just been promoted not long ago and was not a powerhouse at the 7th level of the Celestial Realm. However, he shouldn't have been sent flying so easily by Yi Shiwen's sword strike. The Imperial Clan Court had mobilized a large number of people in order to ensure that they could catch Yi Shiwen this time. It should be known that the matters in the Imperial Clan Court were usually handled by the stewards. Each of these elders, who were above the seventh heavenly layer of Heaven Realm, was also a big shot. They could basically be regarded as the higher-ups of the Yi clan after being promoted to this level. Many of these big shots were in closed-door training all year round. They were working hard in order to break through to the Supreme Realm. Every minute and every second was very precious. So, they rarely chose to come out to do things. Not to mention that they had to personally capture this small fry in their eyes. However, the Imperial Clan Court still sent this elder at the 7th level of the Celestial Realm to ensure that they could successfully bring Yi Shiwen back with one strike. In his eyes, Yi Shiwen had suddenly become more abnormal than those rumored geniuses. At this time, he finally understood why Yi Qiong had such a mysterious smile. He didn't understand what it meant before, but now he understood. It was clearly a mockery, mocking him for overestimating his own strength. Yi Qiong was a genius. Yi Qiong was a genius. Yi Qiong didn't understand what it meant before, but now he understood. However, at this time, he had no way to retreat, or rather, there was no reason to retreat at all. He did not need to retreat either. He was one of the 5 tyrants of the Yi family, Dongbatian. Good, very good. You have exceeded my expectations, but in front of me, no matter how strong you are, you can't be my opponent. Yi Xinghe said confidently and glanced at Yi Shiwen indifferently. The endless qi on his body seemed to be burning, showing unparalleled power and momentum. 7th level of the Celestial Realm. This Yi Xinghe has actually entered the 7th level of the Celestial Realm. Many people suddenly exclaimed. They could not believe that Yi Xinghe had actually entered the 7th level of the Celestial Realm. This had far surpassed many old antiques, and the aura on his body had clearly surpassed many old antiques. Even many experts at the 7th level of the Celestial Realm would not be able to withstand a single blow in front of him. So powerful. These experts of the younger generation have made breakthroughs in the past few years. It's really incredible. It seems that the foundation that has been accumulated for hundreds of years is going to completely burst out in these few years. It feels like a golden era. Only such a golden era can give birth to so many peerless geniuses. But a golden era often means that a great calamity is approaching. Think about it. The demon race actually dared to besiege the Imperial Court recently. Will it enter the rhythm of a chaotic era again? Oh my God, if that's the case, the people will really be plunged into misery and suffering. That's right. Even experts at the Celestial Realm are not much better than ordinary people in such a chaotic era. They might not even be able to protect themselves. Yi Xinghe walked towards Yi Shiwen step by step. I've been constantly enduring, but I didn't expect you to become arrogant. I hate people who are more arrogant than me the most. At this time, Yi Xinghe finally made his move. A Grandmaster's sword appeared in his hand. Unlike the clan elder from the Imperial Clan Court just now, this Grandmaster's sword was even more terrifying. Both sides seemed to be on completely different levels. He slashed out with his sword, and the sky shook. An overwhelming and terrifying aura filled the air and formed a boundless sword light in the sky. The endless power transformed into the law of swordsmanship and condensed into a terrifying power that covered Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Xinghe's understanding of the sword was not as good as Yi Kuang's, who could directly manifest the law of the sword into a treasured sword to kill any enemy, he was not far behind. The endless law of the sword was covered in the sword light, breaking through everything. Although this sword light slashed down from the sky, it seemed to have locked all the surrounding space, making it impossible for Yi Shiwen to escape. Yi Shiwen stood motionless and let the sword light slash down. Everywhere was filled with scenes of destruction. In front of this sword light, the void had completely collapsed. It seemed as if this sword light could destroy the world. However, there was not the slightest change in his expression. It was still a face that had not changed since time immemorial, calm and tranquil like a mirror. At this time, Yi Shiwen just shouted loudly, and his 2 big hands directly grabbed out, tearing apart the disaster energy that filled the sky. Endless qi boiled in his hands, and he directly grabbed the sword light on the spot. Boom! His hands collided fiercely, with the sword radiance. The divine radiance that burst forth directly caused the entire sky to shake violently. "You're courting death. How dare you take my sword aura with your bare hands? Even if your physical body is comparable to a heaven-level weapon, you will still die tragically under my sword aura." Yi Xinghe sneered when he saw this scene, and a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He could not wait to kill this guy who had been trying to provoke his dignity. At this time, he even thought of an excuse to kill Yi Shiwen. He would say that Yi Shiwen resisted law enforcement. When he killed Yi Shiwen, who would speak up for a dead man? Even if the law enforcement hall pursued the matter, Yi Shiwen would at most be confined for a period of time with the protection of the Imperial Clan Court. It would not affect anything at all. Every force in the Yi clan valued and protected their own geniuses very much. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed after he had wreaked havoc in the Imperial Clan Court. In fact, he hadn't even been grounded. It was true that Yi Shiwen was in the right. However, the law enforcement hall behind him had also played a crucial role. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong. He saw a snow-white hand directly penetrating his sword light and grabbing it on the spot, tearing the terrifying sword light down from the middle. Impossible. What kind of physical body is this? How can it resist my sword technique? Why do I feel a terrifying aura? Yi Xinghe was shocked to see his sword light being crushed into powder by Yi Shiwen's big hand. He retreated repeatedly, and the endless sword light he had constructed collapsed on the spot. Die! At this moment, Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of Yi Xinghe after grabbing and extinguishing the sword aura that filled the sky. He struck out with his palm, which instantly penetrated the sky and the river of history. At this moment, Yi Shiwen was like an invincible god of war. He was extremely terrifying. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been scared to death by Yi Shiwen's aura alone. However, Yi Xinghe was an extraordinary figure. He suddenly opened his eyes, and his aura suddenly rose crazily, as if he had obtained a bonus in an instant. No wonder you're so arrogant. You do have the capital to be arrogant, but in front of me, these are all fleeting clouds. I'm the #1 person in the younger generation of the Yi family, and I will become the future patriarch. How can I lose in front of a warrior at the 4th level of the celestial realm? Yi Xinghe said coldly. The aura on his body swept out in circles, emitting a burst of milky white halo. The #1 person in the younger generation of the Yi family? You're really a frog at the bottom of a well. Compared to Yi Kuang, you're far inferior. Even compared to senior brother Yi Qiong, you're nothing, Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. A disdainful smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. Indeed, compared to the talented and ruthless Yi Kuang, Yi Xinghe was more or less petty. Chapter 1560. Yi Kuang was Yi Shiwen's enemy, but he had to admit that Yi Kuang was much stronger than Yi Xinghe. Yi Kuang was ambitious, and ambitious. Moreover, he was very farsighted. In fact, Yi Shiwen also believed that it might not be a bad idea to let Yi Kuang lead the Yi clan if it wasn't for the irreconcilable enmity between him and the demon-suppressing city. What? Yi Xinghe said coldly. His tone instantly turned cold. He was a proud person, and he hated being inferior to others the most. Over the years, he had been ranked as one of the 5 hegemons. Even if he was not stronger than the other 4, he was not necessarily weaker, even if he was the youngest. However, this time, he suffered a huge loss in the royal court contest. In the end, he did not enter the top 100. On the other hand, the Yi clan could be said to have set one of the best records in countless years. Yi Kuang and Yi Shiwen each took the top spot in a world. Yi Qiong, brother Yi, Yi Qianqian, Yi Luan, and the others also had decent rankings. In other words, among the 5 hegemons of the Yi clan, only he and Shi Batian had been eliminated. How could the proud and arrogant Yi Kuang accept this? This was the fundamental reason why he came to capture Yi Shiwen personally. He could not bear the fact that Yi Shiwen, the so-called remnant of the demon clan, could actually surpass him. Why? Now, Yi Shiwen actually told him that he was far inferior to Yi Kuang. He was instantly enraged, extremely enraged. Boom! He slashed his sword towards Yi Shiwen, who was rushing over to kill him. Circles of sword light swept out. Under the pressure of this terrifying sword pressure, the void shattered inch by inch. The sword light and Yi Shiwen's fist collided fiercely. Boom! A terrifying collision sound rang out, and a huge crack appeared in the center of the battle. The power that the space could not bear was all distorted, absorbed, and poured into the chaos. In the midst of the primal chaos, this power was nothing at all. The auras of the two sides strangled each other, and the terrifying power rippled on their bodies, causing their clothes to flutter. Neither side backed down, just like gods and demons. Yi Shiwen, you should be proud of yourself for being able to force me to this extent. There has never been a warrior at the 4th level of the celestial realm who could make me do this. Yi Xinghe's voice became colder and colder. Whoosh! 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 The Zong sword in his hand began to boil, and endless sword light began to boil, forming a huge storm around him. A huge force swept out from the Zong sword and filled Yi Xinghe's body. His aura seemed to have risen to another level and was extremely terrifying. Waves of power were projected, causing Yi Xinghe's figure to stand taller. At this moment, he seemed to be the only overlord in this universe. At this moment, everyone who had the blood of the Yi clan in their veins felt a terrifying pressure. It was a pressure that came from the boiling of their blood. This Zong sword is definitely not an ordinary Zong sword. Otherwise, how could we be suppressed to this extent with our celestial realm cultivation base? Generally speaking, as one's cultivation base slowly increased, the influence of the bloodline would become smaller under normal circumstances unless there were some pure-blooded races. This was because they would begin to undergo a rebirth. The stronger the cultivation base, the smaller the influence of the Zong sword on them. On the contrary, if one's cultivation base was very low, they could even kill someone with the blood of the Yi clan with a Zong sword. It could be said that they would not be able to fight back at all. Many big shots in the Imperial clan court had Zong swords, but it was obvious that the Zong sword that Yi Xinghe had was extraordinary. It was not an ordinary Zong sword. His power was getting stronger and stronger, and he immediately slashed at Yi Shiwen with the sword, intending to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. Yi Shiwen, be careful. This Zong sword is not ordinary. It's the sword of the patriarch of the Imperial clan court, and it's the most respected Zong sword. At this moment, Yi Qiong, who was not far away, hurriedly shouted and reminded him. It turns out to be the patriarch's sword. No wonder. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. The patriarch was the highest leader of the Imperial clan court. His status was comparable to Yi Jintian's, and he was also one of the most powerful experts in the Yi clan. The sword beside him was naturally not bad. You only reacted now? I think it's a little too late. At this moment, Yi Xinghe sneered and said, and the sword light instantly tore down. The sword light blotted out the sky, and the rippling power made it seem like the heart-severing sutra. What do you mean it's too late? It's not late at all. Yi Shiwen sneered and finally moved. He grabbed with his big hand, and in an instant, the sky seemed to be torn apart. He directly grabbed the sword light on the spot. Boom! It was another terrifying collision. The sword light constantly splashed on Yi Shiwen's big hand, and the divinity in Yi Shiwen's big hand was also evaporated in waves. It's useless. No one can escape from my sword. Yi Xinghe sneered and looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. His eyes were cold and ruthless. Yi Shiwen had completely infuriated him just now. The sword light finally cut Yi Shiwen's hand, and it actually cut a red mark on his skin that was as tough as gold and stone. Moreover, it continued to deepen, as if it was going to completely cut off his palm. At this moment, countless pores in Yi Shiwen's body were spewing out qi from his body. It swept out bit by bit and condensed into a finger in the void. Sky imprisonment technique, stay. Yi Shiwen's voice was loud and clear. The huge finger pointed out in the air, and the void shattered. Endless sword light was blasted apart wherever it passed. In Yi Xinghe's eyes, the finger turned into a huge cage in the air and instantly shrouded Yi Xinghe. What kind of finger technique is this? Why is it so powerful? Yi Xinghe was taken aback, but there was no time for him to react at this time. Yi Shiwen's physical body was extremely tyrannical, and he dared to rely on the strength of his physical body to look down on Yi Xinghe. He dared to forcefully fight with him, but Yi Xinghe couldn't do that. Whoosh! Yi Xinghe stomped his feet, and his body instantly moved hundreds of meters away. He barely avoided the huge finger in the sky, and the terrifying pressure was irresistible. Yi Xinghe instinctively sensed the horror of the sky imprisonment technique. It could even imprison the sky with one finger. At this moment, his vision suddenly blurred. Yi Shiwen, who was swept by his sword light and couldn't move forward, had already rushed in front of him. There was also a golden long sword in Yi Shiwen's hand that was condensed from divinity. The sword light cut through the sky, and it slashed at Yi Xinghe's neck as if it was going to cut off his neck. He suddenly opened his mouth and roared, and a destructive power erupted from his body. The Zong sword in his hand also soared into the sky and slashed at Yi Shiwen in an instant. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen completely. Clang! The two long swords collided fiercely, and the sword light collided with the sword light. Endless sword aura splashed out and swept into a storm. The terrifying sword aura tore the void and directly rushed into the chaos. Break for me! Yi Shiwen roared again. He directly pinched a seal with one hand, and it turned into a mountain that fell toward Yi Xinghe. Rippling mountain seal, break for me! At this moment, the rippling mountain seal fell on Yi Xinghe's body. Boom! Yi Xinghe was immediately caught off guard, and he staggered on the spot, falling several places in the sky. How powerful! How can he be so strong? Am I seeing things? The one who has the upper hand now is actually Yi Shiwen? How is this possible? Yi Xinghe has never fallen since he was named as one of the 5 enchantments. In terms of strength, it goes without saying. How can he still not be Yi Shiwen's opponent? Now, the younger generation has stepped into the 7th level of the Heaven Realm one after another. This Yi Shiwen is even more abnormal. I remember that when he first came, he had just stepped into the Law Manifestation realm not long ago. Now he is already so powerful. From now on, it will be terrible. He has only been in our Yi clan for a mere dozen years. I don't know if such a peerless genius will be a blessing or a curse for our Yi clan. Boom! The entire sky trembled wildly, and terrifying fluctuations soared into the sky. Moreover, the clouds in the sky were dispersed. The movement was even greater than before, and it directly caused many old antiques who were in seclusion in the depths of the Yi clan to react. They wanted to probe with their spirit to find out what was happening. The endless storm stirred up smoke and dust in the sky, making it difficult for people to see clearly. When everyone could see clearly, they saw an extremely shocking scene. Yi Xinghe, who originally thought that he had the upper hand, looked at Yi Shiwen with a face full of horror. Yi Shiwen's hand directly penetrated the void and grabbed Yi Xinghe's neck. His big hand was like an iron hoop that tightly wrapped around Yi Xinghe's body. Ah! Yi Xinghe screamed. His face was flushed, and his neck was almost broken by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was as terrifying as a demon. He grabbed Yi Xinghe's neck as if he was carrying a little chick. The power of the seal word constantly seeped out, suppressing all of Yi Xinghe's resistance. Therefore, even if Yi Xinghe wanted to resist, it was useless. There was no way to shake Yi Shiwen at all. He could only be grabbed like a dead dog. How is this possible? Everyone seemed to be dumbfounded. They looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. Who is Yi Xinghe? How could he be so easily grabbed by Yi Shiwen? Chapter 1561. However, the facts in front of them forced them to believe that it was indeed the case. Yi Xinghe was held in Yi Shiwen's hand like a little chick, while Yi Shiwen was holding the sex sword in his other hand. The sex sword was still struggling in his hand, bursting with endless buzzing sounds, trying to break free from Yi Shiwen's hand. However, Yi Shiwen quickly suppressed it. Could it be that I'm seeing things? Someone looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief and stuttered. One could imagine how shocked they were. Yi Shiwen held Yi Xinghe in one hand and the sex sword in the other. He said indifferently, "I'm taking Yi Xinghe away. If the people of the Imperial Clan Palace want to take him back, come to the law enforcement hall. This matter will not end without a reasonable explanation." Yi Shiwen sneered and then disappeared into the sky with Yi Qiong, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong. No way. Yi Xinghe was taken away by Yi Shiwen? Could it be that I'm seeing things? Oh my god! Something big is going to happen. Something big is going to happen. Not only did Yi Shiwen defeat Yi Xinghe, but he also took Yi Xinghe away. The Imperial Clan Palace is definitely humiliated. They asked for it. They provoke Yi Shiwen every 2 or 3 days, but they can't figure out Yi Shiwen's strength. If the sect elder personally takes action, where can Yi Shiwen escape to? The sect elder personally takes action? How is that possible? Who does Yi Shiwen think he is? Only the law enforcement hall master, Yi Zhentian, can get the sect elder to take action. Everyone suddenly burst into an uproar. This could be considered as piercing through the sky. In everyone's opinion, Yi Shiwen was in big trouble. He was in big trouble. The news of Yi Shiwen defeating Yi Xinghe and bringing him back to the law enforcement hall quickly spread throughout the Yi family. At first, many people refused to believe it. After all, this matter was unreliable no matter how they looked at it. Yi Shiwen was only a rising star of the younger generation, while Yi Xinghe was one of the 5 tyrants of the Yi clan who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the powerhouses of the older generation. His status could even be said to be second only to Yi Zhentian, Yi Qian, and other big shots of the Yi clan. But now, Yi Shiwen actually carried him back to the law enforcement hall like an eagle catching a chick. Yi Shiwen didn't hide anything along the way. So, many people saw this scene and accelerated the speed of this matter. Yi Shiwen had just returned to the law enforcement hall, but this news had already spread throughout the entire Yi clan. What? The remnants of the demon clan actually captured Yi Xinghe. Damn it. Ask Yi Zhentian to hand over the man, bastard. Soon, the roars of the big shots of the Imperial Clan Palace could be heard. Yi Shiwen had challenged the authority of the Imperial Clan Palace several times. For them, it was simply intolerable. Of course, they didn't feel that there was anything wrong with sending people to intercept Yi Shiwen. In fact, it was even because they thought highly of Yi Shiwen's performance. How could an ordinary person deserve to be personally dispatched by the Imperial Clan Palace? Compared to the riot on the side of the Imperial Clan Palace, the law enforcement hall this time was also more agitated. It had already happened once last time when the Imperial Clan Palace wanted to capture Yi Shiwen for no reason. In the end, after the clan master mediated, both sides were barely able to calm down. However, the grievances between both sides were not resolved. However, they had attacked Yi Shiwen again this time. Yi Zhentian was especially furious. Do they think that our law enforcement hall is a pushover that anyone can bully? The law enforcement hall's response was very simple when faced with the anger of the Imperial Clan Court. They had requested them to hand over Yi Shiwen. They had personally come to apologize and give a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to take Yi Shiwen away. The two behemoth-like organizations directly confronted each other on the spot. For the Imperial Clan Palace, no one had ever dared to provoke their majesty like this. Their most outstanding disciple was actually captured like a dead dog. For the law enforcement hall, they couldn't accept the fact that the Imperial Clan Palace had repeatedly grabbed Yi Shiwen, their most outstanding disciple at present, with their claws. Both sides refused to give in, and a serious conflict might even break out. However, this was a collision between the two major forces. For the majority of the Yi clan, these were not issues that they needed to care about. For them, this time, Yi Shiwen had truly amazed everyone. If Yi Shiwen was only considered to have risen in fame previously, then this time, he had amazed everyone and directly became a top figure in the hearts of countless people. This was the so-called laughing while standing on Yi Xinghe's corpse. Perhaps many people were still confused about who Yi Shiwen was. However, when it came to Yi Xinghe, almost everyone knew about him. Yet, such a figure was defeated by Yi Shiwen. This was enough to make Yi Shiwen famous overnight in the entire Yi clan. For a time, all kinds of discussions came one after another. What? Did I hear it wrong? Yi Xinghe was defeated by Yi Shiwen? Not only was he defeated by Yi Shiwen, but he was beaten like a dead dog. He was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all, and it is said that Yi Xinghe has entered the 7th level of the celestial realm, but he is still not Yi Shiwen's opponent. How tyrannical is Yi Shiwen? Oh my god, how can there be such a tyrannical person? And it is said that Yi Qianqian and Yi Shukong have also entered the 7th level of the celestial realm. They can be compared to the original 5 hegemons. It seems that the ranking of our Yi clan's 5 hegemons, which has not been shaken for many years, is going to be rearranged. Many people began to get excited. Originally, the 5 hegemons of the Yi clan did not have much to do with them. This ranking had been set many years ago, and basically had no direct relationship with them. For ordinary people, the 5 tyrants was an existence that they could only look up to. They were like mythical existences. But now, someone had challenged this ranking and shaken it. For them, this was tantamount to being injected with chicken blood. It was as if they were the ones who had this opportunity, because no matter what, Yi Shiwen, Yi Qianqian, and the others were also challengers. And most importantly, Yi Shiwen had succeeded. Yi Xinghe of the East Tyrant Heavens, who was also one of the 5 hegemons, was like a paper tiger in Yi Shiwen's hands. He was easily defeated. This gave them hope. It turned out that the 5 hegemons were not existences that could not be challenged. They were also humans and they would fail. They were not gods. Moreover, in the eyes of many, it was still unknown how Yi Qianqian and Yi Shukong would fare. At the very least, Yi Shiwen had shown enough tyrannical strength. Some people had already recognized him as the new East Tyrant Heavens. In this regard, the Imperial Clan Court was very angry. However, there was no way to control the public's mouth. Everyone understood that it was better to prevent the public's mouth than the river. Moreover, it was a fact that Yi Xinghe had been defeated by Yi Shiwen. Many people had witnessed it with their own eyes. So, it was impossible to deny it. Yi Xinghe's reputation suddenly plummeted, and he suddenly fell out of the 5 hegemons. Although he was still recognized as one of the 5 strongest people among the younger generation, he was no longer comparable to the 5 hegemons. There were many top experts in the Yi clan, but there were only 5 people in the 5 hegemons. This would never change, unless they lost to other experts who were also part of the 5 hegemons. Once they lost to an expert who was not part of the 5 hegemons, their position would immediately be pulled down. The mysterious altar that had been veiled for many years was meaningless in front of everyone. After being defeated by Yi Shiwen, Yi Xinghe was no longer the glorious East Tyrant Heavens. Unless there was a way to defeat Yi Shiwen again, it would be impossible for him to regain the position of East Tyrant Heavens. However, in this regard, everyone was generally not optimistic about Yi Xinghe. He was not defeated by Yi Shiwen by a single move, but he was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. This was enough to show that there was a huge gap between the strength of both sides. It would not be easy for Yi Xinghe to defeat Yi Shiwen again. It could even be said that there was no hope at all. At the same time, the strength of the 5 hegemons had also become a topic of discussion. Among the 5 hegemons, Yi Kuang was the strongest, and he was far ahead of the other 4. This was also recognized by everyone. In the eyes of others, except for Yi Kuang, the cultivation of the other 4 hegemons should be almost the same. Therefore, from the fact that Yi Shiwen easily defeated Yi Xinghe, he should also be able to easily defeat the other 3 hegemons. Then, the only suspense was whether Yi Shiwen could defeat Zhong Batian and become the strongest person in the younger generation of the Yi clan. In this regard, it could be said that both sides had their own arguments, and no one could convince the other. Both sides had a large number of supporters. However, the result of this debate could only be that there was no conclusion. Yi Kuang's tyrannical strength had long been deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. However, Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength was not fake either. Defeating Yi Xinghe with ease was a clear proof. Yi Shiwen's name had shaken the world with this battle alone. In the hearts of everyone, he was strong enough to compete with Yi Kuang. However, no matter how they guessed, it was just a guess. In everyone's opinion, Yi Shiwen and Yi Kuang had not fought face to face. All the wins and losses were just their own guesses. This also added another veil to the already mysterious strength of the two. However, only Yi Shiwen, Yi Kuang, Yi Qiong, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong knew that they had not fought before. Yi Shiwen and Yi Kuang had a decisive battle before, and the result of that battle was Yi Shiwen's defeat. In fact, if Yi Qiong had not helped him, he might have been killed on the spot by Yi Kuang. However, regarding this result, the four of them surprisingly remained silent. For Yi Shiwen and the others, this was a defeat that was not worth publicizing. But for Yi Kuang, not only had he failed to scheme against them, but he had also suffered a great loss. This was enough of a disgrace, so naturally he would not take the initiative to mention it. Chapter 1562. Under the silence of these people, the debate between Yi Shiwen and Yi Kuang was endless. However, there was no way to come to a conclusion as to who was stronger. However, Yi Shiwen's reputation had also risen along with these discussions. Suddenly, everyone in the Yi family knew about Yi Shiwen's reputation. Even many old guys who had been in closed-door training for many years knew about Yi Shiwen because of the discussions in the Yi family. They knew that there was such a character in the younger generation. He had unexpectedly defeated the previous 5 hegemons. Many old fellows were exceptionally shocked. To them, this was simply impossible. In the past, there were people who managed to pull down the 5 hegemons. However, those people were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. This was because the 5 hegemons had been decided long ago. Moreover, they were the most outstanding geniuses in the Yi family. In addition to the various resources of the family's higher-ups, it allowed them to leave everyone behind in a very short period of time. Then, they would slowly take the lead. For example, the current batch of top experts in the Yi family were mostly from the 5 hegemons. In this kind of situation, it was simply impossible for the latecomers to counterattack and drag the original 5 hegemons down with them. The people who could do this were all major characters who could shake the heavens and the earth. Their future accomplishments were simply limitless. Moreover, it could be said that such a person was already very difficult to kill. Currently, Yi Xinghe was at the 7th level of the celestial realm. In the end, he was also defeated by Yi Shiwen. In other words, he at least possessed the combat strength of the 7th level of the celestial realm. Such a person was a giant in the Yi family. In the ancient Baron's continent, he was also an influential figure. Who would dare to say that they could definitely kill him, unless it was a celestial realm expert? However, the possibility of an expert of that level taking action was too low. Moreover, Yi Xintian was not someone to be trifled with. Therefore, in the eyes of many, Yi Shiwen's rise was already something that could not be avoided. It could even be said that it was unstoppable. If it were an ordinary person, the 7th level of the celestial realm could even be said to have grown to the peak. At that time, even those geniuses could not say that the 7th level of the celestial realm had not grown. They just had not grown to the peak. In their eyes, this was another unparalleled expert that was about to rise up. Based on this pace, it wouldn't be long before he would be able to reach the end of Heaven Realm. If the 6th and 7th celestial stage of Heaven Realm were a threshold, then the 9th celestial stage of Heaven Realm and the end celestial stage of Heaven Realm were also a huge threshold. Experts above the 7th celestial stage of Heaven Realm were all big shots in the ancient Baron's continent. However, the ones who truly determined the life and death of the ancient barons were a small group of people at the peak of the Heaven Realm, the end celestial stage. Only by growing to the end of Heaven Realm would one be able to truly control the ancient desolate era. Any end of Heaven Realm expert was an extremely vicious person, and they could travel freely in an army. Yi Shiwen's fame became even more resounding as these old guys joined the ranks of paying attention to him. Many people who didn't know Yi Shiwen's name before also knew him at this time. But no matter what, Yi Shiwen had already secured the title of East Tyrant. In just less than a month, Yi Shiwen had become the new East Tyrant under the public's gossip. As for the original Yi Xinghe, he was still locked up in the Law Enforcement Hall's prison. The feud between the Law Enforcement Hall and the Imperial Clan Palace had been going on for a long time. On this issue, both sides were even more stubborn, and no one was willing to give in. The Imperial Clan Palace was clamoring to sue the Clan Master, while the Law Enforcement Hall was even more certain that they could sue the Clan Master if they had the ability. Yi Xinghe was detained by them, which made the Imperial Clan Palace gnash their teeth in anger. However, they had no choice. Yi Xinghe was now in the hands of the Law Enforcement Hall, and there was no way they could do anything about it. However, how could they be willing to bow down so easily? Previously, they wanted to capture Yi Shiwen without authorization, but in the end, they could only let the Clan Master not help them. Although that incident made the Imperial Clan Palace lose face, the Imperial Clan Palace was in the wrong, and they had never bowed down, let alone now. The Law Enforcement Hall was also unwilling to give in. If the Imperial Clan Palace couldn't give a satisfactory answer this time, they would let Yi Xinghe sit in the Law Enforcement Hall's prison for the rest of his life. Many big shots in the Law Enforcement Hall were clamoring to fight a war. They wanted to vent their anger that had been suppressed over the years. Who was afraid of who? In short, they couldn't be kind. Yi Shiwen, who caused such a storm, hid in seclusion as if nothing had happened. In the past 6 months, he hid and digested the remaining half of the Qilin meat. This Qilin was really worthy of being an ancient, auspicious beast. It was extremely powerful, and coupled with the cooking of many precious medicinal herbs, the medicinal effect could be said to be amazing. In just a short period of about half a year, Yi Shiwen had completely consolidated his realm, and his strength had risen a lot, directly reaching the level of the peak of the 4th level of the Celestial Realm. He was only a step away from reaching the peak of the 4th level of the Celestial Realm. At that time, he could officially begin to break through to the 5th level of the Celestial Realm. When he stepped into the 5th level of the Celestial Realm, he could really compete with the masters of the 8th level of the Celestial Realm. At that time, he would not be afraid even if he encountered Yi Kuang. He could even fight Yi Kuang. The last battle with Yi Kuang made him realize the gap between him and Yi Kuang. Yi Kuang was already at the peak of the 7th level of the Celestial Realm, and he had just stepped into the 4th level of the Celestial Realm. At that time, he was indeed not Yi Kuang's opponent. But now, if he encountered Yi Kuang again, and his strength had not increased, Yi Shiwen was confident that he could fight evenly with him, and he would not be in such a difficult situation like before. But he understood that this was not enough, far from enough. Just being able to fight evenly with Yi Kuang was still not enough. In order to ensure his safety, he must reach a level where he could defeat Yi Kuang. This was very difficult. After all, Yi Kuang was also a peerless genius, and he had so many resources. His cultivation progress was also frighteningly fast. Under normal circumstances, it was simply impossible for him to suppress Yi Kuang. If he relied on normal circumstances, after more than 2 years, he would be able to step into the peak of the 4th level of the Celestial Realm. At that time, Yi Kuang would probably have already stepped into the 8th level of the Celestial Realm, and he would still not be Yi Shiwen's opponent. Therefore, he could only find another way, especially the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram that he had previously obtained, which gave him a great hope. If he could restore the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram, then even if Yi Kuang stepped into the 8th sky of Celestial Realm, he would still be suppressed by him. This was a divine tool that had already surpassed the heaven level. Now, among the 5 elements of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram, except for the earth element, which was still intact, the other elements were completely missing. And to refine and restore them was not an easy task. The 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram was a powerful existence that surpassed the level of a heavenly level tool. Therefore, the materials needed to refine it were also extraordinary. Among them, the water element needed to be refined in the northernmost part of the northern underworld. However, the northern underworld was located in the northernmost part of the wilderness, which was the territory of the demon race, not the territory of the human race. Moreover, even in the demon race, the northern underworld was still the northernmost region. If one wanted to reach the northern underworld, he would have to cross the entire demon territory and face countless dangers in order to reach the northern underworld. And this was just the beginning. There were countless powerful ominous beasts living in the northern underworld. Even the demon race powerhouses had no way to deal with these powerful ominous beasts. Not to mention, there were many terrible demon beasts that had existed since the mythological era, such as the legendary Kuan Pung, which was a powerful existence that fed on flood dragons. Kuan Pung lived in the northern underworld, and the northern underworld frigid water was in the depths of the northern underworld. There was a northern underworld frigid water pool, a pool in the northern underworld sea. It was a miracle. Compared to other waters, the northern underworld frigid water was absolutely different. It could even be said to be incompatible. Even its density and temperature were different. That was why it could form a pool. These were mentioned in the manuscripts left behind by the five elements supreme. In order to refine the part of the water element, the five elements supreme could be said to have gone through fire and water. There were several twists and turns, and the biggest reason was that there was a terrifying, ominous beast, Kuan Pung. The nest of the Kuan Pung was in the northern underworld cold water pool. It was naturally difficult to snatch food from the mouth of this monster. However, this was also the only way. Compared with the other elements, the water element was the only one that Yi Shiwen had a chance to complete. For example, in order to complete the fire element, one had to obtain the Nan Mingli fire. However, everyone knew that the Nan Mingli fire was born with the phoenix. Now no one knew where the phoenix had gone. Where could one find the Nan Mingli fire? This itself was an unrealistic thing, so Yi Shiwen could only target the northern underworld cold water. Fortunately, the manuscripts also mentioned that the Kuan Pung would leave the northern underworld cold water pool every once in a while and then fly to the demon territory to kill and hunt. Until it was full, it would return to its nest in the northern underworld cold water pool. This was his chance, and his only chance. If he could obtain the northern underworld cold water and complete the water element, then the five elements Qian Yuan diagram would instantly rise to the peak of the heaven level, which was equivalent to an existence like the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. It was very important to Yi Shiwen. It just so happened that his cultivation could not ascend again in a short period of time. Yi Shiwen immediately decided to go to the demon territory northern underworld and obtain the northern underworld cold water. As for the confrontation between the law enforcement hall and the imperial clan court, because of him, he could not care about it at this time. There was only a little more than 2 years left before the battle for the top 100. There was not much time left. Chapter 1563. Time was the most precious thing for Yi Shiwen. Since he could not use conventional methods to improve his cultivation to the 5th level of celestial being realm in a short period of time, then he would use other means. If he could completely refine the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram, then even if his cultivation didn't make the slightest bit of progress, his fighting strength would undergo earth-shaking changes. Thinking of this, he immediately left for the demon territory without any hesitation. What? You want to go to the demon territory? You have to think about it carefully. The demon territory is not like our human kingdom. There are demons everywhere. Compared to the devil race, the demon race is not much better. They are equally ferocious. Once they know your identity, you may be hunted down by the demon race. When Yi Jintian knew that Yi Shiwen wanted to go to demon territory, he could not help but be a little shocked. He was shocked by Yi Shiwen's boldness. Demon territory was still a mysterious country for the human clan. The reason why Yao Zhao was prominent among the human clan was largely because Yao Zhao dared to walk among the human clan with the identity of a demon clan. Moreover, he made such a name for himself and did not seem to be afraid of being besieged. Like Jia Gu Jinghao in the past, although he once chased in a demon territory for thousands of miles, it was because he was only in the law manifestation realm at that time. He did not attract the attention of the demon clan's higher-ups at all, who would care about his existence, which gave him the ability to kill in one blow. But even so, it was a narrow escape for Jia Gu Jinghao. He almost died several times. After this incident, it became one of Jia Gu Jinghao's great achievements. He must mention this matter every time. It was also one of the thickest reasons why he could face Yi Qianqian. From these things, it was not difficult to see how dangerous demon territory was. Even the demon clan hated the other 3 clans very much, because in a long time ago, the demon clan used to be the rulers of the ancient barons. One of the current overlords, the human clan, was just food for the demon clan. Now, they were on equal footing and even occupied the most fertile land. They were even more tyrannical than the demon clan. It was conceivable what kind of attitude they had towards the human clan. Yes, but I have my own way. I should be able to enter the demon land safely. For me, this is also a kind of experience. Only in this kind of dangerous situation can my strength possibly improve rapidly. Master, you also know that there are only 2 years left before the top 100 competition. The time is still too tight for me. Yi Shiwen said. Yes, that's true. But you have to understand that in the current situation, I'm afraid that it's not an exaggeration to say that chaos is coming. Relatively speaking, the competition for the top 100 rankings is actually insignificant. It's even possible that it will be cancelled in the end. Yi Jintian said, it is precisely because of the arrival of chaos that I need to work harder to practice. In this chaotic world, only the strong can protect themselves. Whether it is for the sake of competing for the top 100 rankings or to protect myself in this chaotic world, I have no other choice. Yi Shiwen said, if that's the case, I won't try to persuade you anymore. I will order the law enforcement hall to open the data room for you. You can check the information about the demon earth before you go there. Although a lot of the information is from a long time ago and may not be accurate, it's better than nothing. Yi Jintian said, as for the Imperial Clan Court, you don't have to worry about it. I will help you deal with this matter. If they don't spit out a fat piece of meat for you, I won't let them go. The law enforcement hall was in charge of the Yi clan's laws. Although the details of the information in the data room weren't as detailed as that of the Dark Hall, it was still very good. There were also a lot of information and handwritten notes left behind by the ancestors of the Yi clan. There were also many records about the demon soil. This was the most mysterious place for human beings. Many ancestors of the Yi clan had explored this place and left behind a lot of information. Although a lot of information might have been left behind tens of thousands of years ago, it was still better than nothing. So, Yi Shiwen didn't refuse. He stayed in the data room for 3 days and 3 nights. He browsed through all kinds of information about the demon race and demon territory. After memorizing it, he set off for the northern demon territory. After Yi Shiwen left the Yi clan, he realized that the war situation had changed a lot from a month ago. A month ago, the main force of the demon race was still besieging the imperial court and had yet to affect the ancient Barons continent. But now, the demon race had spread the flames of war to the ancient Barons continent. Many hidden spies of the demon race were suddenly resurrected. In addition to the cooperation between the demon-worshipping religion and some powerful experts of the demon race, the entire ancient Barons continent was in a state of war. And this was precisely shaking the foundation of the human race. Most of these mortals didn't have any cultivation, and they lived ordinary lives. In the eyes of many powerful warriors, these mortals were no different from ants. However, these mortals formed the foundation of the human race. Without these mortals, no matter how powerful those powerful experts were, they would be like rootless duckweed. In the ancient Barons continent, many of the experts of the human race came from famous clans like the Yi clan. However, most of them came from these ant-like mortals. It was this huge number of mortals that provided an endless supply of geniuses for the human race. Only when these mortals prospered could the human race be considered to be prosperous. Many people understood this logic, including the demon race. They knew that their strength couldn't besiege the imperial court and the forces of the other marquises at the same time. However, it was more than enough to ignite the flames of war among the mortals. In an instant, the entire ancient Barons continent was filled with the flames of war. Facing such a situation, the 4 royal clans, the 28 marquis clans, and the experts from the various sects sent out their strongest experts to kill the demon race that had infiltrated the continent. Battles could be seen everywhere. The flames of war were burning everywhere. There were traces of desolation everywhere. The battles between the experts of the Devil Clan and the Human Clan could be seen at any time. Many places that had been infiltrated by the Devil Clan were no longer as prosperous as before. They looked very desolate. If Yi Shiwen didn't have to hide from the Imperial Clan court, he would have already set out to kill these remnants of the demon race that were running around the continent. He went all the way to the north, And whenever he found any devil race mischief, he mercilessly beheaded all of them. How powerful was his strength? Even the experts of the seventh heavenly layer of celestial being realm were not his match, let alone these devils, or the martial artists of Bai Majiao, who acted as accomplices to the tiger. The real experts were still besieging the imperial court and couldn't spare any manpower. Right now, they were only here to ignite the flames of war and disrupt the human race's position. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was basically invincible. Wherever he went, the demon race was slaughtered by him. They weren't his opponent at all. However, this was useless because his strength alone was too weak. Facing the power of the demon race that had been operating for countless years, he couldn't stop the flames of war from spreading more and more intensely, even though he had tried his best to kill. Cities, villages, and towns that had been breached could be seen everywhere. The survivors of the human race were crying as if they were complaining about the unfairness of the heavens. In the face of such natural and man-made disasters, mortals didn't have the slightest strength to protect themselves. Even though many forces had sent many disciples to kill those devils, tragedies were still unavoidable and unavoidable. Yi Shiwen didn't speed up because of this. He killed the demon race along the way and headed to the demon race's territory. In this way, after killing for half a year, he finally arrived at the border between the demon race's territory and the human race's territory. In this half a year, Yi Shiwen had almost forgotten everything else. There was only killing, killing, and killing. He was not in a hurry to go to the demon territory. Compared to this matter, these people needed his help more. In the past 6 months, he didn't know how many devils he had killed or how many henchmen of Bai Majiao had helped him in his evil deeds. Just the large-scale strongholds of Bai Majiao had already been destroyed by him. Due to the defeat of the demon race, demon-worshipping religion had always been low-key in the ancient Barons continent. They were even more secretive about their strongholds. But now, as both sides fell into the flames of war again, in order to cooperate with the demon race's offensive, they couldn't wait anymore. Their strongholds had also been discovered. Yi Shiwen followed these traces and went all the way to one stronghold after another. Every time he found a stronghold, he would behead all the experts of Bai Majiao and Devil Race, leaving no one alive. These people were not worthy of sympathy, and letting them go would be a crime against others. In this half a year, Yi Shiwen had also completely consolidated his cultivation of the 4th heavenly level of celestial realm. It could even be said that he had climbed to the peak of the 4th heavenly level of celestial realm. Originally, Yi Shiwen thought that it would take at least 2 to 3 years to climb to the peak of the 4th heavenly level of celestial realm. But now, with his non-stop killing in this half a year, he could be considered to have stepped into the peak of the 4th heavenly level of celestial realm ahead of time. Compared to half a year ago, his strength had undergone earth-shaking changes. It was as if he had been reborn and received a baptism. Especially his soul. It was even more so. Watching his fellow humans die tragically, from the initial anger to the later silence, he became more and more ruthless when slaughtering the demon race. Half a year ago, he was still not Yi Kuang's opponent. But now, if Yi Kuang were to find trouble with him, he would probably be killed on the spot. Chapter 1564. Of course, this was under the premise that Yi Kuang's strength had not improved in this half a year. If Yi Kuang had stepped into the 8th sky of Sky Realm, then it would still be a headache for Yi Shiwen. But this also represented a good thing, as he would be able to catch up with Yi Kuang's strength. Yi Shiwen looked at the miasma in the sky. It formed a natural barrier, separating the human kingdom and the demon territory into 2 completely different worlds. As far as the eye could see, this line was endless, disappearing into the horizon. Unlike the central region of the ancient Barons continent, which was suitable for human survival, the demon territory was no different from a barren land or even a place where it was impossible to survive. Among them, the miasma was the biggest difficulty. In the demon territory, it was filled with miasma all year round. Ordinary people could not survive in it at all. Back then, the demon race was pulled down from the throne. After that, the human race and the allied forces of various races only chased them to the outside of the demon territory. They did not go deep into it because the environment in the demon territory was not suitable for weak creatures like humans to survive. For the warriors who had cultivated well, the miasma was nothing. However, for ordinary people, the miasma was enough to kill them. Therefore, the human race did not continue to chase the demon race into the demon territory. First, the rabbit would still want the human race, and when the dog was anxious, it would jump over the wall. At that time, it might cause fatal damage to the human race. Secondly, even if they seized this place, ordinary people would not be able to survive. There was not much strategic value. Of course, for many powerful warriors, the demon earth was also a treasure land. Because there were many barren hills and unruly rivers, it also nurtured many heavenly materials and earthly treasures. There were many places with thick miasma that even the demon race could not enter and survive in. Therefore, the environment was still the same as it was countless years ago, and there were even many good treasures. Therefore, in the demon territory, many powerhouses would try to sneak in and obtain these treasures every day. Because of this, the demon race was very sensitive to the powerhouses of other races, especially the human race, which was the thorn in the eyes of the demon race. The treasures in the demon territory were undoubtedly the meat in the mouth of the demon race. If the powerhouses of other races wanted to share, it would be like pulling the teeth out of the tiger's mouth. It was simply unforgivable. Moreover, the experts of the various races could conceal their auras, but there was no way to change them. Therefore, the most they could do was to sneak in and see if they could obtain anything. There was no way for them to face these demons head-on. However, Yi Shiwen was not worried, because he had already cultivated the restraining breath technique to a very high level. Even if he were to disguise himself as a devil, it would not be a problem. Not to mention the demon race who also absorbed Lingqi to practice. He immediately rushed into the miasma. His appearance didn't change much. He only changed the aura on his body, and that was enough. This was because many members of the demonic race could also transform into human form. This was not strange. The truly accurate way to distinguish them was through their auras. The auras of the various races were very different. However, this was nothing to him. His aura concealment technique could easily change his appearance, which was the easiest way to fool others. Unlike the human race, the demon race in the demon territory existed in the form of tribes. Because they were of the same race as the human race, the demon race was like the alliance of 100 races. There were many different races, large and small, from flying in the sky to running on the ground. It was impossible to form a country like the human race. More of them formed tribes, and a tribe was often a race. Apart from the tribes, there were the true rulers of the demon race, the 72 demon commanders. Each demon commander was in existence at the celestial realm and ruled over countless tribes. Each demon commander had countless experts under them, and their status was comparable to the marquee clans of the human race. Above the 72 demon commanders, there were the 10 great demon kings. Each demon king was a supreme existence that could support the heavens and earth, extremely powerful. After entering the demon territory, Yi Shiwen had no intention of stopping. He immediately passed through the demon territory and went all the way to the north, in the direction of the North Underworld. Compared to the human countries, the killing in the demon territory was heavier. There were countless human countries. Although there were also battles, the overall situation was considered stable, unlike the demon territory, where killing was everywhere. This chaotic situation made Yi Shiwen spend a full 3 months crossing the vast demon territory. Along the way, Yi Shiwen encountered all kinds of killing almost every day. In the vast demon territory, there were many mysterious places. Even the demon race did not dare to touch these places. Since ancient times, there were many forbidden places, and even many prehistoric demon race giants lived in them. There were many places that even the almighty demon experts didn't dare to touch. Although Yi Shiwen had read a lot of information about the demon soil, but after all, he had never personally experienced it. Not to mention, he didn't know when the information was written. Moreover, even those seniors who had left behind this information didn't dare to casually stroll inside the demon's soil, so he simply didn't know many places. Because of the incomplete information, Yi Shiwen was in an extremely dangerous situation. Especially in the case of flying at high speed, he had accidentally intruded into the lair of some demon beasts several times. Some of them were even prehistoric demon beast ancestors with profound cultivation. It could be said that Yi Shiwen had a narrow escape from death. Only then did he manage to escape with great difficulty. At this time, he finally understood the meaning of the many seniors' notes, saying that the demon territory was dangerous and that one should be careful when entering it. With his current strength, he was now able to casually kill a celestial realm powerhouse, but he had actually been forced to escape several times. It could be said that in these 3 months, he had experienced more than 100 battles, big and small, and more than half of them had ended with him escaping in a sorry state. And there were even a few times where he was in a situation where he had no chance of survival, and in the end, he had escaped by the skin of his teeth. Otherwise, no matter how vast the demon territory was, it would not have taken him a full 3 months to finally cross the entire demon territory and enter the northern underworld. And this was when he disguised as a demon race. If he was a human or some other race, then perhaps he would have to face more than this scale of battles, and even the regular powerhouses of the demon race tribe would participate in the hunt to kill him. Yi Shiwen was also deeply shocked by the deep foundation of the demon race. With his strength, in these hundreds of battles, more than half of them were fleeing in a panic. One could imagine how deep the foundation of the demon race was. This was a terrifying race that once ruled the remote antiquity. No wonder, when the demon race reappeared and besieged the human race imperial court, all the races reacted. Only the demon race was the calmest. Perhaps it was this incomparable strength that allowed them to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. In terms of reproductive ability, the demon race was indeed far inferior to the human race, but the demon race was innately much stronger than the human race. In addition to this cruel situation of fighting, it caused more geniuses to emerge in the demon race. Although the human race also deliberately carried out the model of breeding goo, using various methods to promote the competition between geniuses, just like the imperial court hegemony. But in any case, there was no way to compare with this kind of crazy and bloody killing. That kind of bloodthirsty aura that seeped out from the root was something that the human race could not learn and could not learn. Fortunately, the biggest advantage of the human race was that they had more people than the demon race. These 3 months could be said to be a narrow escape from death, but it was not without gains. The biggest gain was that he successfully pushed the realm to the celestial realm 4th level. Originally, he thought that it would be possible to reach the realm after 3 years, but now it had only been half a year, and he had already reached this realm. Sure enough, he had to go through all kinds of hardships to be able to burst out every trace of potential in the body. Although he had been fighting outside, but he didn't lack spirit crystals. Those hundreds of spirit crystal mineral veins had given him enough confidence. Although he had used them unscrupulously in the past 3 months, and had eventually come out on top amidst the numerous crises, but in the end, he had only spent a trifling 3 spirit crystal mineral veins. That's all. For others, this may already be the behavior of a prodigal son. Many powerhouses of the celestial realm's 7th level, all their net worth was just this, but for Yi Shiwen, it was nothing at all, as long as his strength could be exchanged for rapid progress. No matter how many spirit crystal mineral veins he consumed, it would not be excessive. Different from the time when he had just broken into the celestial realm 4th level half a year ago, the current Yi Shiwen had already undergone great changes. His breath was restrained, calm, and had long been reborn. It could even be said that the current him could easily blow up his original self with one punch. Even within the same realm, there was a huge difference in strength. This was also why Yi Shiwen, who had just entered the celestial realm 4th level, could only cause some trouble for Yi Kuang even if he used all his strength. Unless he used some taboo trump card such as Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber, he might not be a direct opponent of Yi Kuang. Of course, Yi Shiwen's strength hadn't been the only thing that had changed in the last few months. Moreover, the biggest progress he had made was that he had successfully mastered all the moves of the heaven-level top-grade martial art, the Sky-Severing Finger. The Sky-Severing Finger was divided into a total of 5 moves, namely Sky Imprisoning, Sky Shaking, Sky Breaking, Sky Leveling, and Sky Severing. Yi Shiwen had already practiced the Heaven Imprisoning technique and the Heaven Shaking technique. However, he hadn't been able to practice the remaining 3 techniques because he had used up all of his spirit crystals. So, he had temporarily delayed his practice. He often had a lot of spirit crystals on him, but they had been used in other more important areas. So his practice had been delayed until now. He had finally finished practicing the Heaven Breaking technique, the Heaven Flattening technique, and the Heaven Severing technique. Chapter 1565. Sky Severing Finger was divided into 5 styles, and each style was extremely powerful. It could be said that it was the pinnacle of finger techniques that Yi Shiwen had seen, not to mention practicing it. It was not easy to practice each style. In the past, it was a little difficult for Yi Shiwen to practice. After all, he was only in the law manifestation realm at that time. But now, he had already entered the celestial realm. His cultivation had also undergone a tremendous change. It could even be said that he had reached the celestial realm. Back then, Yi Shiwen had a hard time practicing heaven-level martial arts. Heaven-level martial arts were martial arts that could only be practiced by experts at the celestial realm. For experts at the law manifestation realm, or even half a step into the celestial realm, this was already beyond their ability. Generally, it was already very impressive for a half step into the celestial realm to be able to practice heaven-level primary martial arts. And for Yi Shiwen to be able to comprehend heaven-level top-level martial arts, that was already the power of a monster, and only Yi Shiwen could do it. This was also the most fundamental reason why Yi Shiwen could fight above his level. Yi Shiwen wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to complete the cultivation of the Sky Breaking Finger. He had delayed the cultivation of the Sky Flipping Seal for a long time. However, he discovered that the might of the Sky Flipping Seal was still impossible for him to complete the cultivation even with the help of the mysterious space. Although the mysterious space could deduce martial arts, it could only be done under certain circumstances. Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to do so if the gap between him and the Sky Flipping Seal was too large. In the past, Yi Shiwen did not feel this way, because at that time, whether it was mortal level, earth level, or heaven level martial arts, there was no difference. They were all the same, ignorant. At that time, as his cultivation continued to improve, he slowly discovered the power of Sky Flipping Seal. Even now, although Yi Shiwen could use the first 2 seals of Sky Flipping Seal, Shaking Mountain Seal, and Inverting Sea Seal, it was obvious that he could not play these 2 seals to the peak. He had a lot of martial arts that were very profound, and there was also Devil Wings. He had been trapped in the 2nd layer of Tempest Wings for a long time, but there was no way to break through the 3rd layer. If there was a way to break through in an instant, with just speed, he was sure that he could fight with Celestial Realm Masters. Unfortunately, there was no clue. Previously, his cultivation was too low, and now that his cultivation was high, Yimo was in a deep sleep, resulting in no other news. In addition to these, his own cultivation of observing person scripture could also be said to have fallen into a huge bottleneck. After he successfully entered the celestial realm, the galaxy in his body had completely evolved into a galaxy. Countless stars were born and destroyed in it, as if it was a drama of life and death every moment. However, he was still unable to truly evolve into a universe. It was as if he was lacking something, unable to truly break through. If he was unable to truly break through, then he might be stuck in the celestial realm, unable to truly break through to the celestial realm. All of this required a large amount of time to deduce. Fortunately, he still had that mysterious space. If it was someone else who obtained this incomplete cultivation technique, they could basically only wait for death. There was no other way. But he still had time. He was now only at the 4th layer of Celestial Realm. He did not know how long it would take for him to reach the 9th layer of Celestial Realm, let alone the Celestial Realm. Even so, the 9th heavenly layer of Heaven Tier was still considered a very large threshold. After entering the northern underworld from the demon land, the miasma gradually decreased, but suddenly it became cold. It could even be said to be a dozen degrees colder, not suitable for ordinary people to survive. Even ordinary demon race could not survive in this situation. Only those powerful warriors could survive in this environment. But it just so happened that although the northern underworld land was extremely cold, it was not frozen. Further north of the northern underworld land was a sea. This was the real northern underworld. Although ordinary sea water was not as cold as the legendary northern underworld frigid water, there was no doubt that it was still much colder than ordinary sea water. If ordinary people entered, they would probably be frozen in a few minutes. Creatures that could survive in this kind of place, without exception, were extremely fierce creatures. Not to mention the Kuin Pung that could survive in the northern underworld frigid water. It was even more terrifying, simply unimaginable. Part of the northern underworld frigid water could refine the water element, part of an unparalleled treasure, like the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. How terrifying the entire frigid water would be. It was simply unimaginable. And this creature, Kuin Pung, had existed since ancient times, was also a giant in the demon land. Even in terms of the long lifespan of the demon race, this Kuin Pung had existed for a long time. However, when Yi Shiwen just arrived at a city on the edge of the northern underworld, he found that this city seemed to have been under martial law. Many brightly armored demon race masters rushed into the northern underworld sea in large batches. In addition to these soldiers, there were also many tyrannical celestial realm masters who had arrived unknowingly. Different from the human race, these demon race belonged to different races. Each of them looked strange, and some even retained many of their own race characteristics, looking very strange. On the edge of this northern underworld sea, there were many such cities because for the demon race, the northern underworld sea was also a place that had not been completely conquered, or in other words, it was a place that was completely impossible to conquer. Many of the fierce beasts that lived in it, even demon marshals and demon kings, could not do anything about it. In particular, the Kuanpung was the biggest problem for the demon clan to subdue Dark North. This was the most difficult problem to solve in the past generations. Even this matter had spread outside the demon clan, and even Yi Shiwen in the human clan had heard about it. So every time he thought of snatching food from the tiger's mouth from the mouth of the Kuanpung, he had a terrible headache. But even so, there were still many people coming, and soon, Yi Shiwen understood why so many masters came. The reason was simple, that, like Yi Shiwen, was the northern underworld frigid water in the northern underworld frigid water where that Kuanpung resided. Kuanpung had been hunting for countless years, and had long been used to it. Everyone also calculated the time when Kuanpung came out to hunt, and this time was their only chance to snatch the northern underworld frigid water from under Kuanpung. Needless to say, the value of the northern underworld frigid water, countless people were coveting it. This time, I'm also determined to get the northern underworld frigid water. Whoever dares to snatch it, I'll kill him. Come on, there's so much northern underworld frigid water. You can take it if you want. There's no need to fight at all. On the contrary, fighting is a waste of time. If that Kuanpung comes back, then we're really dead. This time, Kuanpung is dead. What do you mean you have other news? Do you see these demon soldiers and demon generals? This time, it's the deployment of one of the 10 demon kings, Jiao Ing Demon King, and it's the most elite Fong soldiers under his command. It's actually the Fong soldiers of the Demon King. No wonder they're so elite. I looked over, and there's not even one below the Heaven Realm. In a restaurant, Yi Shiwen listened quietly, and his mind couldn't help but become active. In the Demon Land, the 10 Demon Kings ruled the world, and any Demon King had unimaginable power and influence. They ruled countless demon soldiers and demon generals, and the most powerful among them was undoubtedly the Fong soldiers under their command. These Fong soldiers were the personal guards of the Demon King, and any one of them was a powerful expert above the Heaven Realm, and any one of them was a famous existence. With Heaven Realm warriors as soldiers, an army organized was enough to sweep the world, and its strength was unimaginable. However, I heard that the current Jiao Demon King has just taken over the position, right? Why would they target the Kuanpung? Someone said in disbelief. Many experts who opposed him were cruelly suppressed. Even the first cave demon commander was massacred by him. His entire clan was exterminated, and the corpses were not allowed to be collected. He was no longer as strong as before. Rumor has it that he received the inheritance of the ancestor of the nine-headed infant tribe. His bloodline is unprecedentedly pure. In addition to his talent and some of the lost martial arts of the nine-headed infant tribe, he defeated his father and succeeded as the Demon King. The 10 great demon kings had changed? Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes. The shock in his heart was not small at all. The 10 great demon kings were equivalent to the 4 human kings of the human race. Needless to say, their strength was strong, and it was not a normal replacement. Instead, it was killed by the descendant of the human king. How much bloodshed was hidden in this? However, due to the special nature of the demon territory, the news did not spread to the outside world. At least, it did not spread to the extent that even Yi Shiwen knew. The current Jiao-Ing Demon King even sent a large number of experts. Their purpose is very simple, and that is to slaughter this Kuan Peng, refine the Kuan Peng's blood essence, and obtain eternal life. His eternal life, impossible, apart from the gods, who can truly live forever. Moreover, even the gods known as the Eternal Sky, didn't they all fall one by one? The Jiao-Ing Demon King must be crazy. At this point, that person could not help but lower his voice, even though he was also at the heaven realm. But to talk about a powerful demon king behind his back like this for many people was tantamount to seeking death. Chapter 1566. Who knows? But it's also possible that this Kuan Peng already has divinity. This Kuan Peng has existed since the mythological era. Moreover, in the ancient myths and legends, this Kuan Peng feeds on dragons. The dragon race is a race that can challenge the gods. This shows how powerful this Kuan Peng is. Maybe it has really seen through the mystery of immortality. Otherwise, even with the lifespan of a Kuan Peng, it's impossible for it to live until now. That's right. In an era without gods, immortality seems to have become a taboo topic. Even if our lifespans are much longer than those of the human race, no matter how long we live, we will still die one day. Moreover, the human race has complete intelligence at the age of 10. We may have not developed intelligence for hundreds or even thousands of years. In fact, we are not much better than the human race. At our level of cultivation, how many of us are willing to turn into a cup of soil? No matter what, we have to give it our all. But isn't the Jiao-Ing Demon King in his prime? Isn't it a bit too early to start thinking about this at this time? It's precisely because we are in our prime that we have to start thinking about this. When we grow old and weak, even if we want to kill the Kuan Peng, we will not be able to. No matter what, these are the matters of those big shots, and have nothing to do with us. Don't think that we are in the heaven tier. If we get involved in these matters, we will still be seeking our own deaths. We are no better than ants. Exactly. Let's think about the northern dark frosty water. When we get rid of this Kuan Peng, the northern dark frosty water will probably be gone. How can it be gone? Without the Kuan Peng, there should be more. You are wrong. What kind of existence is the northern dark frosty water? In the past, because of the Kuan Peng patriarch's protection, no one dared to covet it. At most, they would steal a little when he went out to look for food. But once the Kuan Peng is killed, will the Jiao-Ing Demon King let us divide the northern dark frosty water? At that time, he will probably use his great mystique to take the northern dark frosty water away. What will we have to do then? In the future, I'm afraid that besides the Jiao-Ing royal family, no one else will have the chance to obtain such a heavenly treasure. Yi Shiwen listened at the side, but he was in deep thought. If it were him, he would not let the northern dark cold water be divided up by these people. Therefore, for him, there might not be enough time. He had to take advantage of the chaos to take away a part of the northern dark cold water. As for the battle between the Demon King and Kuan Peng, it was not something that someone at Yi Shiwen's level could come into contact with. He would not be bold to that extent, and he did not feel that he could participate in such a matter. Fortunately, he came early. If he came late, he was afraid that the northern dark frigid water would have nothing to do with him. Although there were other substitutes, the northern dark frigid water itself was a heaven and earth oddity. It only grew in the deepest part of the northern dark sea. Something that could replace the northern dark frigid water naturally couldn't be too bad, and it was very difficult to get. We naturally don't need to care about that. But there are people who want to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. Haha, this time the nine-headed fierce demon king is very determined to hunt down the Kuan Prung. And it has also attracted many old monsters who are cultivating in the deep mountains. Yi Shuwen just found a room, and while meditating, he quietly waited for the day of the Kuan Peng's birth. And as the time got closer and closer, many powerful masters came one after another, among which there was no lack of peerless talents of the demon clan. However, the nine-headed fierce demon king seemed to be completely indifferent to the arrival of these people. Or it could be said that he did not care about these people at all, and did not feel that these people could cause any hindrance to him. 10 days. Yi Shiwen waited in the inn for a full 10 days, and also adjusted his spirit to the best state. And just when Yi Shiwen began to be a little impatient from waiting, suddenly, a terrifying coercion crushed down. It was extremely terrifying, and that powerful spiritual power seemed to be able to crush everything to death. Under this terrifying pressure, Yi Shiwen's bones all over his body creaked, and he could not straighten his body. Even his tyrant body was in such a state, let alone others. Yi Shiwen hurriedly used his martial power to resist, and only then could he move freely. At this moment, there was a sudden uproar outside, and only countless masters could be heard shouting. Quickly activate the protection. If the Kuan Peng rushes in, we are all finished. All of you shut up. Can't you see the nine-headed fierce demon king is here? This Kuan Peng is dead this time. Activate the protection. Are you kidding me? Let me out. I still want to see the battle between the two peerless masters. The Kuan Peng is here. Yi Shiwen instantly swept out with his divine sense, and saw that in the sky there was a black cloud covering the sky, and he did not know whether it was hundreds of miles or thousands of miles directly covering the surrounding sky. Hiss, the Kuan Peng. Yi Shiwen stared at the void in the void, and the terrifying beast that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the northern underworld, there was a fish called the Kuan, and the size of the Kuan was unknown, thousands of miles. It transformed into a bird called the Prung, and the back of the Prung was unknown, thousands of miles long, and when it flew, its wings were like the clouds in the sky. Although Yi Shiwen had seen some huge, fierce beasts, it was the first time he saw such a huge one, and he really could not see the end of it at a glance. At this time, in Yi Shiwen's mind, some records about the Kuan Peng in the handwritten notes left by some predecessors emerged. The Kuan Peng was a powerful, fierce beast that existed in the distant mythological era, although the human race and other races classified it as a demon. And even in the distant heavenly court of the demon race, the Kuan Peng was the demon master, meaning the master of all demons. There were also many people who said that this Kuan Peng was no longer the demon master of the demon emperor era, but only a descendant. However, in the hearts of many demon races, the Kuan Peng was not a good thing. The body of the Kuan Peng was incomparably huge, and every time it hunted for food, it was a disaster for the demon race. Every time the Kuan Peng flew out of the northern underworld, it would devour a large number of demon race. In front of this terrifying, fierce beast that was comparable to the Demon King, many demon race simply had no way to resist and could only helplessly be swallowed by the Kuan Peng, becoming its food. Especially these cities near the northern underworld, they loved and hated the Kuan Peng. Every time the Kuan Peng came out to hunt for food, they were the first to suffer, but they refused to leave, and the countless wealth in the northern underworld attracted them from all over the demon territory. Yi Shiwen expanded his divine sense again, and just barely managed to see clearly. This was indeed a terrifying bird-shaped fierce beast. Some other legendary divine birds, such as the golden-winged roc, and so on, were far inferior compared to this huge fierce beast. This huge Kuan Peng suddenly opened its mouth in the void, and suddenly endless suction force formed a huge tornado, carrying everything in the sky and flying into its mouth. The demonic beasts in the entire mountain range were completely absorbed on the spot. Roar! 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 A huge, fierce beast's roar penetrated the vast sky, and at this time, these tyrannical beast kings were almost like paper tigers in front of this Kuan Pung, and had no power to fight back, or in other words, the two of them were not creatures of the same level. It could even be said that the two of them were not creatures of the same level anymore. Yi Shiwen looked at the Kuan Pung and could not help but feel a chill down his back. He did not know at first, but after seeing this Kuan Pung, he truly understood why this Kuan Pung could tyrannize the demon territory for countless years, and why many demon clans hated it to death, but could not do anything about it. It was not that they did not want to, but they could not. Such a terrifying strength had already surpassed the strength of the Heaven Realm. At least Yi Shiwen had not seen any Heaven Realm with such a terrifying strength. Even if it was a Heaven Realm master, in front of this Kuan Pung, he was afraid that he was not much better than others, and also had no power to fight back. It seemed that this Kuan Pung didn't intend to leave so soon. It wanted to sweep through the nearby cities. Countless powerful spirit beasts had gathered in these cities. A powerful spirit beast was more meaningful than absorbing hundreds or thousands of spirit beasts' blood. Where is the nine-headed fierce beast king? Why is he not here? Many people saw the horror of the Kuan Pung and were already afraid, praying in their hearts. In front of this fierce beast, they were like laughable toys and could not withstand a single blow. Yes, where is the nine-headed fierce beast king? I heard that the nine-headed fierce beast king was going to make a move, so I rushed here. Otherwise, now that this Kuan Pung is out looking for food, who would come here? Could it be that he is tricking us? That would be too treacherous. Impossible. The nine-headed fierce beast king has even sent out his 2 soldiers. How could he go back on his words? At this time, many people were in a mess, and many people had already turned around to escape. The pressure this Kuan Pung gave them was too great. In the city just now, tens of thousands of demon clan were swallowed in one breath. That scene was too terrifying for Zhong Ruigan, and thinking of this scene, many people's legs became weak. Although they all knew that with the speed of the Kuan Pung, they might not be able to escape. At this time, there was no other choice. Could they still stay and obediently become the food of the Kuan Pung? And just when everyone was about to give up hope and flee, suddenly, a cold voice came from the sky. Animal, still want to be arrogant? I have also tolerated you for many years, die. At this time, a loud rebuke came from the void, and then a long spear as thick as a small mountain broke through the void and directly fell on the Kuan Pung on the spot. A huge crack was split in the sky, and the sky was trembling, as if it wanted to surrender under the terrifying power of this long spear. Chapter 1567. Everyone held their breath and seemed to be stunned as they looked at the scene in front of them. The long spear that was as thick as a small mountain was extremely terrifying as it pierced through the sky. Just as the Kuan Pung was about to be nailed, the Kuan Pung that was originally circling in the sky like a black cloud suddenly disappeared. The long spear pierced through empty air. Just as the long spear was about to fall to the ground, a big hand directly penetrated the void and grabbed the long spear. Then, a huge figure slowly appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged man with slightly raised eyes. Between his brows, there was an unruly expression, cold and ruthless. He was another formidable character. His whole body was as big as a mountain, incomparably huge, and not much smaller than the Kuan Pung. The magical power of Law World, although it might not be advantageous to be bigger, with the huge size of the Kuan Pung, even a demonic beast the size of a small mountain would be at a disadvantage if it fought against it. His body was as straight as a spear, standing in the sky like a pillar supporting the sky. It was incomparably terrifying. This is the nine-headed fierce demon king? Yi Shiwen thought to himself, but he was secretly shocked. This nine-headed fierce demon king was much stronger than he had imagined. No wonder he could kill Lao Wang and ascend to the throne himself. He even suppressed all the opponents in the territory and now dared to touch the tiger whiskers of the Kuan Peng. And before everyone could react, suddenly, the huge black cloud that disappeared suddenly appeared in front of everyone in an instant. It appeared in front of the nine-headed fierce demon king. Just that head alone was the size of a city. A pair of dark green eyes stared at the nine-headed fierce demon king. That pair of wings were like a pair of incomparably sharp long blades. It slashed down from the void fiercely, and two huge cracks appeared in the void. A loud whistling sound swept out in an instant, sweeping up a huge storm. Everyone could not keep up with such a reaction speed at all. Only Yi Shiwen, who condensed divinity in his eyes and greatly increased his eyesight, could barely keep up with such speed. He could not help but be extremely shocked and gasped. This Kuan Peng's speed was really amazing. Yi Shiwen's current speed was far from this Kuan Peng's match. Soaring 90,000 miles was really no joke. Even in that kind of environment just now, he had also escaped the nine-headed fierce demon king's fatal blow. This huge body had unparalleled terrifying power, but in contrast, it had a terrifying speed that was completely unmatched. It was really fast to the extreme. In addition, it had been bathed in the northern dark cold water all year round, and its physical body had long reached an extreme. This and Yi Shiwen, to a certain extent, had the same effect through different means. It was simply like a demon version of Yi Shiwen that had been magnified countless times and was countless times stronger. Yi Shiwen had no rivals in the same level, and even those who were higher than him were not his match. It was by relying on these few points that he had reached the extreme and some seemingly unremarkable points, but they were the foundation of all martial arts. It was just that Yi Shiwen relied on the devil's wings and the tyrant body scripture, which were acquired. This Kuan Peng, on the other hand, was purely innate. Its innate aptitude was terrifyingly strong, so it dared to eat the Dragon Clan, absolutely not without reason. Boom! Countless storms swept out and fell on the top of the city. The city had no choice but to automatically raise a protective shield to protect everyone inside. The violent winds caused the protective shield to fluctuate continuously, as if it would be blown away in the next second. But at this time, everyone did not care so much. They all looked at the Jiuying Demon King in the void to see how he would deal with it. Terrifying power boiled in the void. Under everyone's gaze, the Jiuying Demon King did not care about the two wings that were slashing at him, only thrusting his spear towards the Kuan Peng, as if he wanted to kill it in one blow, even if both sides would be injured. Just as the Kuan Peng's wings slashed over, the Jiuying Demon King's spear had already pierced into the Kuan Peng's face. Swoosh! The spear pierced empty air, only blasting a big hole in the sky. Chaos poured out like a torrent, falling into the dark North Sea, setting off endless waves. Cowardly beast! The Jiuying Demon King sneered disdainfully. At the most crucial moment, the Kuan Peng still retreated, not having the guts to fight the Jiuying Demon King. And the Jiuying Demon King seemed to have known all this long ago. If this Kuan Peng was really so brainless, it would have been killed countless times over the years. Swoosh! A terrifying torrent of energy cut through the sky and slid down from the depths of the sky. It was as thick as a monstrous river, and the sky was shaking violently. In an instant, it came crashing down. At this moment, a four-clawed monster with a snake-like body appeared behind the Jiuying Demon King. Its body was covered in fiery red scales and blue scales, and it had 9 huge snake heads. This was the real body of the Jiuying Demon King. With a long roar, the 9 heads spewed out 2 torrents of energy, ice and fire, towards the huge torrent of energy in the depths of the sky. Boom! The terrifying energy collided, and the powerful shock wave burst out, instantly evaporating the seawater of the dark North Sea, directly setting off waves that were thousands of meters high. Looking from afar, it was extremely terrifying. Many of the demons in the city couldn't help but turn pale when they saw this scene. Even if it was a heaven-tier expert in a fight like this, he would probably not be any better than an ordinary person. Swoosh! The Jiuying Demon King stomped his feet, and his figure directly disappeared in the void, leaving only a huge footprint in the sky, shattering the space and pouring out chaos. When the crowd came to again, the Jiuying Demon King had already killed his way into the void, and his long spear was like a heavenly pillar, dancing in the sky. Even though they were separated by tens of thousands of miles, the aftermath of the fight still caused the entire dark North Sea to be in a state of turmoil. Damn beast, obediently surrender. I know that you are old and weak now, and no longer as powerful as you used to be. The Jiuying Demon King's arrogant voice came from the sky. Then came the terrifying roar of the rock, and from time to time, a rain of blood fell from the sky. No one knew whether it was the rocks or the Jiuying Demon Kings. The battle between the two had reached the depths of the void, and many people could not see it at all, unless they followed. But who would dare to follow and watch such a great battle? So this Kunpeng can also age? No wonder he is far less powerful than he used to be. Yes, rumor has it that this rock even dares to swallow the gods. Although the Jiuying Demon King is powerful, he is still not comparable to the gods in the legends. The crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. As the two peerless masters fought one after another in the void, the crowd suddenly felt relieved, as if the terrifying pressure had suddenly disappeared without a trace, and they could finally take a breather. However, then there was a huge uproar. The crowd finally realized that now the rock was stalled by the Jiuying Demon King, so now was the best way for them to explore the rock's nest. Moreover, the rock had occupied the dark North Sea for countless years, and many powerful masters had died tragically in his hands. Inside the dark North Sea, there was likely to be some kind of treasure, and if they could get it, it was tantamount to getting rich overnight. Many people suddenly did not care about the possibility of the two fierce men coming back at any time, and hurriedly jumped out of the city and began to fly towards the dark North Sea. Yi Shiwen was also among these people, and his speed was extremely fast. In a short while, he had already jumped to the front of the crowd, but Yi Shiwen soon found that the entire dark North Sea had actually been blocked by someone, and it was not someone else, but the tooth soldiers under the Jiuying Demon King's tent. These tooth soldiers, who had been fighting for many years, had a terrifying aura, and all of them were masters above the celestial realm, and most of them had even crossed the threshold of the fourth celestial realm, and were extremely tyrannical. Soon, everyone was blocked outside the door. You people, quickly retreat. This has been designated as a battlefield, and it is our Jiuying tribe's spoils of war. Whoever dares to approach will die. At this time, a young man in a luxurious robe slowly appeared from the void, his eyes filled with incomparable arrogance, and he glanced at the crowd, as if he did not want to talk to the crowd. That is the third prince of the Jiuying Demon King. It is said that the third prince is usually the most favored. As early as when the old king of the Jiuying tribe was still alive, the third prince was often accompanied by the current Jiuying Demon King on expeditions. His cultivation is even more high, and it is said that he has already entered the seventh celestial realm. Someone quickly recognized the identity of this young man in a luxurious robe, and suddenly could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was another expert with an extraordinary identity. Yes, an expert who had already entered the seventh celestial realm. No matter how young he was, could definitely be regarded as an expert, and it would be an insult to him to emphasize his young age. Shameless, they actually want to monopolize the spoils. Suddenly, many people were filled with righteous indignation, as if they could not remember that it was precisely because the Jiuying Demon King had stalled Kunpeng that they had such an opportunity. What else can we do? Do we have to fight with them? These are the most elite experts under the Jiuying Demon King's command. If they join forces and form a battle formation, it won't be a problem to kill us. Especially if the Jiuying Demon King wins, then we'll probably die a graveless death. What are you afraid of? So many of us. Do you think we are all vegetarians? Although the Fang army is powerful, and although they are elite, I do not believe that they can stop so many of us. Moreover, haven't you heard that the law does not punish the masses? Even if the Jiuying Demon King returns victorious, Does he still want to kill all of us? Perhaps we alone are nothing, but with so many of us joining forces, even the joeying Demon King will have to be cautious. Chapter 1568. The nine-headed fierce beast tribe had sealed this part of the sea. For these people who wanted to fish in troubled waters, it was simply provoking public anger. Bastard, don't tell me that you people still want to stop this old man? Suddenly, an old man shouted and directly rushed in on the spot. Two Fong soldiers wanted to stop him on the spot, but they were smashed on the spot by this old man's fist and directly rushed in. Suddenly, this old man's action seemed to have caused a chain reaction. Many people began to attack the defensive line constructed by the Fong soldiers of the nine-headed fierce beast tribe. Although the old man had easily killed the two Fong soldiers, not everyone possessed the strength to do so. These Fong soldiers had followed the nine-headed fierce beast king on expeditions for many years. Each of them could be said to have killed their way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Each of them was a peerless god of death. The murderous aura on their bodies was monstrous. It was simply not something that ordinary people could deal with. Many people wanted to imitate that old man, but the result was that they were directly torn apart by these Fong soldiers on the spot, and then became their food, swallowed one bite at a time. Demon race was completely different from human race. Once the demon race was defeated, it was very likely that they would become the food of others. If to a large extent the battles of the human race were for benefits, then the killings between the demon race were mostly for the desire of food. Even a powerful demon beast like the Kuan Peng would still go around and eat people. A very important part of the cultivation of the demon race was the digestion of blood. Everyone's blood essence contained powerful energy. The more powerful the warrior, the more it was so. Just like Yi Shiwen would often beat people to death, the blood essence would be absorbed by Tianyuan mirror, and the pure energy would sometimes be reversed into Yi Shiwen's body. It was essentially the same, but the form was not the same. Among the human race, many demon path, evil path, and devil path warriors would also do this, but after all, it was not the mainstream. Yi Shiwen also rushed in with the crowd. In front of him, a Tiger Clan Fong soldier was looking at Yi Shiwen with a grin. He was the captain of the Sixth Sky of Heaven Realm. He looked at Yi Shiwen as if he was looking at a dead man. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen, this fourth sky of Heaven Realm kid, did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Die! He roared loudly, and the tiger-headed blade in his hand chopped down towards Yi Shiwen. It was simple and direct. There were no unnecessary movements, but it was powerful and heavy. It was completely like an ultimate technique that came out of the battlefield. This kind of unique skill on the battlefield was usually so simple and direct, but its power was extremely great. It was basically a battle of life and death. Clang! However, a loud roar was heard as the blade light in his hand fiercely chopped Yi Shiwen's palm. A loud roar was heard. His blade light stood on Yi Shiwen's palm as if it was chopping on gold and iron. It was simply unable to cut Yi Shiwen's palm. Bang! Yi Shiwen had crushed his blade light, but he didn't have the time to be surprised because Yi Shiwen's fist had already blasted towards him in an instant. It was getting closer and closer and was about to blast in front of him. Boom! The Tiger Clan soldier who wanted to stop Yi Shiwen was killed on the spot by Yi Shiwen's punch. His body shattered on the spot. Yi Shiwen grabbed him and put him into the Tianyuan mirror. Yi Shiwen didn't stop. In other words, this Tiger Clan soldier couldn't stop Yi Shiwen for even a second. Yi Shiwen broke through the encirclement in an instant. However, the scene was chaotic now. Most people couldn't break through the encirclement of the Tiger Clan soldier. Most of them were torn apart on the spot. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen felt a strong pressure crushing his body as he broke through the northern underworld sea. Many experts directly bombarded the northern underworld sea like cannonballs and created a huge sea current. However, such a huge commotion had naturally awakened some of the powerful monsters in the deep sea. Roar! A loud roar was heard. A strange fish with 4 limbs opened its bloody mouth and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to bite him. The monstrous fish exuded a frightening, ferocious might. It had definitely reached the strength of the heaven tier or above, and such a monster was practically everywhere in the northern underworld sea. Ferocious beasts that were not at the heaven tier could not survive alone, and could only survive by relying on a strong group. It could be seen how terrible the northern underworld sea was. Even in the demon territory, it was a famous forbidden area. Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. He immediately rushed towards the strange fish with its mouth wide open. Boom! A huge explosion erupted from the mouth of this strange fish, and it directly blasted open on the spot. This strange fish, which was as huge as a hill, directly exploded on the spot. It couldn't stop Yi Shiwen at all. Yi Shiwen could be said to be at his most powerful moment. Even if a monster at the 7th level of the celestial being realm was in front of him, it could not be his opponent. These deep-sea monsters lived in the northern underworld sea. Usually, they were tyrannical and extremely tyrannical. However, in the face of many demon clan experts who were slaughtering them, they couldn't do anything and were beheaded on the spot. What is that? Yi Shiwen suddenly felt that the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped by dozens of degrees. The entire northern underworld sea began to churn as if it was about to freeze in an instant. Then a group of strange snakes directly rushed over in groups. These strange snakes were black all over with triangular heads. They were extremely terrifying. In this strange and incomparably dark sea, it was very difficult to detect them. It was such a huge group that was quickly discovered by Yi Shiwen. These thousands of strange snakes blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It was really called overwhelming. Wherever these strange snakes passed, the seawater boiled as if it was about to freeze. These strange snakes themselves were very cold. Not to mention that when they opened their mouths, they would spit out cold air all over the sky. It was as if they could freeze everything to death in an instant. At this time, Yi Shiwen immediately did not dare to hesitate. The 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram on his body instantly spat out. Endless earth attribute energy swept out directly, forming a small hill that directly crashed down. Imperceptibly, earth restrained water. Although the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram only had the earth attribute left, its power was greatly reduced. However, it just happened to restrain these aquatic creatures. The most powerful thing about the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram was that the 5 elements restrained each other. As long as you were still within the 5 elements, you would inevitably be restrained. It was nothing more than whether the power of the 5 elements in your body was stronger or weaker. Except for some chaotic creatures in the chaos, or zombies, gods, and other creatures that did not belong to the 3 realms and 6 paths. As the saying goes, jump out of the 3 realms and not be within the 5 elements. The phrase, not within the 5 elements, refers to cutting off all the attributes of the 5 elements in one's body, perfectly eliminating one of one's weaknesses so that it would not become one's weakness and be attacked by others. In particular, this strange snake was a strange aquatic creature. It was born from the northern underworld sea, so it was even more restrained by the power of the earth element. In the face of the small hill formed by the power of the earth attribute, these strange snakes screamed and were directly crushed to death. But more of the cold air spat out by the strange snakes actually passed through the layers of defense and directly caused some terrible scenes of freezing on Yi Shiwen's hand. These strange snakes are really terrifying. They can actually penetrate my real elemental shield and penetrate my hand. If I didn't have a protective real elemental shield, I'm afraid I would have been frozen on the spot. Yi Shiwen said with narrowed eyes. Fortunately, he had the power of the earth element in the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. Otherwise, he would have had a headache when facing these water element creatures. Especially, these monsters would appear in groups of thousands, or even thousands of them. With the power of the earth attribute to protect him, he was simply invincible and incomparably sharp. When Yi Shiwen completely restored the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram and the 5 elements were operating perfectly, then as long as they were still within the 5 elements, they would be suppressed by the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram. At that time, he would absolutely be invincible. With the power of the earth attribute to open the way, these strange snakes, which were only around the half-step celestial realm, could not cause any trouble for Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, as Yi Shiwen became more and more proficient in the use of the five elements Qian Yuan diagram, this power of the earth attribute actually formed a cloth-like protective film around Yi Shiwen's body, densely covered with simple and unadorned patterns. This was an extremely profound insurance for the use of the power of the earth attribute in the five elements Qian Yuan diagram. From the notes left by the five elements supreme, this should be the highest manifestation of the power of the earth attribute in the five elements Qian Yuan diagram, the earth robe. It borrowed the name of the legendary goddess of peace, the earth robe. When practiced to a profound level, he only needed to stand, and no celestial realm masters would be able to attack him indiscriminately. It was very strong, but Yi Shiwen could only condense the earth robe now, and was still far from the great accomplishment. Yi Shiwen had just killed these strange snakes, and before he had time to take a breather, he saw the sea began to fluctuate violently again, and a cloud-like object quickly flew toward him. Soon, Yi Shiwen saw clearly what kind of monster it was. He saw that it was a group of small fish the size of an arm, but these small fish looked strange. Each one looked very ferocious, with no skin on their heads, only bones, and their upper and lower jaws were constantly opening and closing, and their sharp teeth seemed to be able to bite through space. These small fish were extremely fast. They looked very far away a moment ago, but in just a moment, they had already pounced in front of Yi Shiwen, opened their big mouths, and bit toward Yi Shiwen. This was a kind of ominous beast that only lived in the northern underworld sea. Don't look down on its small size. According to the information Yi Shiwen had obtained, these small fishes could bite out a big hole in the mountains and rivers. It was very terrifying. However, this time, it didn't give Yi Shiwen any time to escape and immediately pounced on him. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.